to Travolting, covering Swordfish, with special guest Sam Kelly. Enjoy the episode.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Stuart. Do you know what the problem with Hollywood is?
What's the problem with Hollywood?
They make
Besides
shit.
a lot.
They make shit.
They make a lot of shit.
Unbelievable, unremarkable shit.
They do.
You know, I'm not some grungy wannabe filmmaker that's searching for existentialism through a haze of bong smoke or anything like that. No, it's easy to pick apart bad acting, short-sighted directing, and purely moronic stringing together of words that many of the studios term as prose. No, Stuart, Sam, I'm talking about the lack of realism in Hollywood. You dig? Realism, not a pervasive element in the modern American cinematic vision. Take Dog Day Afternoon, for example. It's arguably Pacino's best work, short of Scarface and Godfather Part 1, of course. Masterpiece of directing, easily Lumet's best. But the cinematography, the acting, the screenplay, all top-notch. All top-notch is what I'm saying. But they didn't push the envelope. Now, what if in Dog Day, Sonny really wanted to get away with it? What if, now here's the tricky part, what if he started killing hostages right away? No mercy, no quarter. Meet our demands, or the pretty blonde in the bell-bottoms gets in the back of the head. Bam! Splat. What? Still no bust? Come on. How many innocent victims splat across the window would it take to have a city reverse its policy on hostage situations? This is what I'm saying about movies. And this is 1976. There was no CNN in that movie. There's no CNBC. There's no internet. Fast forward today, present time, same situation. How quickly would the modern media make a frenzy over this? In a matter of hours, it'd be the biggest story from Boston to Budapest. 10 hostages die, 20, 30, bam, bam, right after the other, all caught in high-def, computer-enhanced, color-correcting, you practically taste the brain matter. Whew. All for what? A bus? A plane? A couple $1 million that's federally insured? I don't think so. Just a thought. I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema. But you know what is? Swordfish.
And that's what we're covering today. Thank you, Jeff, for that very original thought of monologue.
Those are my opening thoughts on Swordfish. I did not get them from anywhere else.
Yeah. If I would hope our audience has seen this movie before listening to this podcast and can immediately tell that Jeff just read the opening monologue by John Travolta. But yeah. Can I first just start off by saying that I never like it when movies start off with a monologue from the main actor who's talking about their problems with bad movies, because it's always going to bite them in the ass. It's the same thing with the dark, what was that, X-Men Apocalypse, when they walk out of the movie theater and they're like, oh, the third one's always bad. And it was like meant to be a spoof on X-Men The Last Stand, but you're forgetting that with the new generation X-Men trilogy that started with First Class and then continued with Days of Future Past and then ended with Apocalypse. I know they did Dark Phoenix. We don't talk about Dark Phoenix. But when the trilogy ended with Apocalypse, that was the third movie in their trilogy, and they're literally calling that out upon themselves that their third movie is going to be bad.
It's really wild to call your shot at the beginning of the movie like this.
It is.
Yes.
We have a guest with us today, right?
I mean, in a way, you have to respect it. Like, when I first saw this movie, it was probably like 2003. It was on TBS, and I started watching it, and all of a sudden it comes on, and it's just this dude talking, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I don't know what Dog Days Afternoon is because I'm fucking 12 years old. I don't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden it just zooms out, and we're actually in the middle of the movie. And I was like, well, that's just super badass. Like, John Travolta, I thought he was the coolest guy ever. The way he, sets up this film. And then we zoom out, and all of a sudden Hugh Jackman is there, and so is Don Cheadle. And we're, right in the middle of the hostage negotiation. And then 5 minutes later, it, starts off with literally a blast. And he calls out this movie, and he says, I hate it when movies are bad, and then starts the movie at 100.
Yes.
And so here I am. I'm 10 years old. 12 years old, however, and I'm like, this movie's going to be insane. We've got explosions in the first 10 minutes, and it's that long, drawn-out, circular shot where they're zooming around and the ball bearings are breaking through everything, and it just sets the tone for this movie that it subsequently does not deliver.
And I feel like we could easily just, take the train and run with this plot. But before we do so, Jeff, do you have a context corner to fill in with
Of course
us?
I have a context corner.
Let's go to the context corner.
First, I just
here.
want to thank Sam for coming on today.
Thank you, Sam.
Because when we started the show, we've talked about how we reached out to a lot of people, and then we also put out the call to some friends, and we're like, if you want to talk about a movie, and we got a lot of requests for the big hits, like your Battlefield Earths, your Pulp Fictions, all the ones that people like the big ones that you just assume
And
people
Wild
want to talk
Hogs.
about. Wow, we had a weird amount of people asking for Wild Hogs. I want you to know.
Interesting.
We had 6 requests for Wild Hogs. An episode we have not recorded yet. But you reached out about Swordfish pretty early on.
Yeah, I said, because you said you were going to cover all the topic,
Yeah.
all the movies. And I was like, I mean, if it comes to it, can I talk about Swordfish?
Yes.
Because it's the only John Travolta movie that I've ever, seen this many
mattered.
times. Yeah, that really mattered. That stuck with me as a kid.
And so it was definitely Adam for Phenomenon and you for Swordfish were the two the strange requests that we got. We're like, okay, these guys are going to bring some context to this movie.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm excited to talk about this movie today with
Sam, what is going to be your birds moment or your trees moment in this episode? Because see, Adam, did you listen to a Phenomenon episode? Do you listen to podcasts? I'm going to put you on the spot
I
here.
do listen to podcasts.
To our podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
yeah.
to our
So,
podcast. Answer the question, Sam.
Pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights, I choose to remain silent.
shit.
So I subscribe to your podcast.
He's
Okay.
inflating the numbers.
So, on our Phenomenon episode, which I hope you listen to at some point, Adam went on this rant about the trees in the movie.
yeah, it's this movie about John Travolta getting psychic abilities. And then our friend came on. He's like, well, the whole thing is about the wind swaying the trees and how it relates to the interconnectedness of life. And he's like, yeah, my dad as a kid was obsessed with telekinesis, and this movie changed my life.
So
He just dropped this bomb on us that we're still recovering from to today.
I don't think that Swordfish had that profound of an effect on me. In fact, I viewed it pretty superficially the many times that I've watched it.
Mm-hmm.
It just it was a movie I saw when I was 10, and I thought it was super cool. It was one of the coolest movies I had ever seen. So every time I watch it, I'm colored by that nostalgia I have as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I've ever really viewed it in any super serious detail other than this psycho action movie where John Travolta pulls a machine gun out of the trunk of his Porsche and lights up a whole bunch of government workers
Yeah, in the middle of Los Angeles.
in the middle of Los Angeles and nobody notices.
Yeah.
What a picture.
So, yeah. Okay. I feel like there's going to be a trees moment here.
Yeah,
It's
we're
possible.
We're going to have a trees moment.
I think we're going to
not
have a
gonna see
trees
it coming.
moment. Okay.
Okay.
So, the context corner, Jeff.
So the context corner, where we're at with John Travolta's career, we just covered Lucky Numbers last week, and thank you folks for listening to that.
and Battlefield Earth the week before that.
Yes, an episode we have definitely already recorded. We are not doing anything out of order.
And just here's the thing, yes, he had done some bad movies before Battlefield Earth, but
Yes.
as we stated on our episode of Battlefield Earth,
Yes.
this is the Icarus moment
This is the moment when he flies too close to the sun,
and burns into a crisp.
in which you multiple Razzies, tremendous box office bomb.
I think isn't because everyone knows The Room is the worst movie ever made, the best worst movie ever made, but to this day, I'm pretty sure Battlefield Earth is given the credit for
worst
the
movie
highest
ever made.
budget worst
Yeah,
movie,
it's
the
up
worst high budget movie ever made.
it's up there.
Yeah.
If not still contender.
What's its rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
0%?
That's what I
0%.
thought.
John Travolta has 3 0%.
Out of the how many 0% are there in the world?
I think it's 35.
35 0%.
And I think he has 3. I
and
think
he has
That's
3.
9%. Yeah.
it's Staying Alive, Battlefield Earth, and Gotti.
Oh God.
Is that the first time we've invoked the name Gotti on this podcast? Because we've been pretty good about
it has.
about,
I think it has been the first.
we're getting closer.
Well, I
and
may
closer.
have mentioned you wearing a Gotti shirt, and you're I don't know what you're talking about, and you played that game on me before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first time you
Yeah, well,
mentioned
we're getting
Gotti.
closer and closer.
We have the same birthday, me and Dominic Senna.
Wow.
What a wonderfully fun fact.
and it's Alien Day.
Alien Day?
Yeah, it's so context corner. This film's directed by Dominic Senya, director who had previously mostly done just a lot of music videos.
You can tell.
Yeah, his last music video was "If" by Janet Jackson before he got into film directing. His biggest hit prior to this, which was not a big hit, was Gone in 60 Seconds, the Nick Cage action movie.
Not terrible.
Which lost...
I'm going to say it. Gone in 60 Seconds is not terrible.
It's not the worst.
It's not the worst.
Yeah. But it was a big flop. And so it was kind of a surprise that he got this movie afterward.
Oh, no, I am going to pause the podcast. Gone in 60 Seconds is actually all right. I'm going to say it.
I'm not
all right.
arguing with you.
Have you seen it?
I have not.
Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, so Gone in 60 Seconds is about Nicolas Cage, who is this like very well-known like car thief. Like he's, if you imagine Pig,
Steal cars.
steal cars, yeah, like that's almost like word for word in the movie. And there's like this evil like mob guy, which I think is played by, could it be Tim Roth?
I can get this up for you faster than it's going to take you.
Gone in 60.
Robert Duvall is in this.
Who's
Delroy Lindo is in it, our old friend.
Giovanni
Ribisi.
Ribisi, is he the bad guy in this? I think
he's Nick Cage's brother in it.
Oh, you're right. But then who's the bad guy in this?
Christopher Eccleston. Christopher Eccleston.
He is the bad
Stuart,
guy.
stop looking. It's Christopher Eccleston.
No, it's not Christopher Eccleston.
It's Christopher Eccleston. Doctor Who himself.
Okay. Well, so anyway, his brother gets like taken hostage by this guy because his brother like ripped off this like mob guy for a lot of money, and he says like, your brother owes me this much money, and Nicolas Cage steps in and he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna pay his debt, like what do you need? And he like goes over the top. He's like, I need 100 cars in like 12 hours.
Yeah.
You're gonna deliver them all to me, and here's a list of cars I need. So he puts together this team with Robert Duvall, Angelina Jolie, and like a bunch of other like semi big hitter cast, and they like plan. It's a heist movie, but it's a heist of like coordinated carjackings and like what's Grand Theft Autos like around, I think it's in Miami or LA, one of the two. And it's just like full of like cool like little heist moments, got some action, some car chases. The ending, he like drives a Shelby like Mustang like out right as the sun's rising, and he gets there at the last second, and it's cool. I just think it's a perfect like fun Michael Bay Con Air-esque like movie.
So Stuart's a fan of Gone in 60 Seconds.
I actually have some decent memories of Gone in 60 Seconds.
So Dominic Sena, I don't know which pronunciation it is. He goes from that to this immediately after. Like he's shooting this when Gone in 60 Seconds comes out.
Yeah.
This movie's written by Skip Woods, maybe the worst screenwriter in Hollywood.
He looks like Mickey Rourke.
He looks like Mickey Rourke, which means he kind of looks like a marshmallow that's been a little burnt over the flame.
Jesus Christ.
This man has written Swordfish, Live Free or Die Hard, Hitman, X-Men Origins Wolverine, The A-Team, A Good Day to Die Hard, Sabotage, and Hitman Agent 47.
So how does he keep getting jobs?
Because Hollywood is a cruel place.
Okay. No need to say more. Copy that.
But this film's written by Dominic Sena, and they're looking essentially with this movie to kind of like redefine action for the early 2000s. This movie, you can tell by the style of it, it's very indebted to The Matrix and kind of that reinvention of action movies that The Matrix ushers in.
I was going to say, like, it didn't really reimagine a lot. It's kind of like Dominic Sena just, like, watched The Matrix and, like, I want to do that shot. I want to do that shot.
Yes.
I want to do this stunt. I want to do this explosion.
Yeah, that explosion scene in the beginning.
Yeah, is The Matrix.
Yeah, is 100% The
Word for
Matrix.
word, like-
130. I read it was 135 cameras they used.
It's the same technique and style they use for that famous Matrix shot when Neo dodges the bullets, where how they had, like, the synchronizing cameras.
Except the Wachowskis know when to cut.
Yeah.
And
All right, that's a good one.
that explosion happens, and the ball bearings are flying everywhere, and cars are exploding. Well, first, even before the explosion, the two SWAT guys grab that lady out of the bank, and she's screaming. And, I mean, they're, like, way stronger than her because they're trained to bash doors in and to, like, literally yeet people all around. And they cannot seem to move this lady. So they're dragging her at about 2 inches per second away from the bank, and that scene just absolutely drags on. So finally, after what feels like 4.5 minutes of them getting this lady out of the bank. They finally get her out, and she explodes. And then that amazing 135 camera synced camera shot happens, and that for like another 4.5 minutes is just ball bearings, and it completes the loop multiple times.
Yeah, it does.
And they just keep going in circles, and you're like, okay, we get it. It's exploding. Like, this is fun. This is cool. And then Dominic Senna's like, it's not cool enough yet. we gotta run it back. Just do it a couple more times. Make sure the ball bearings really make their way through the cars. Make sure enough people die. And then finally it ends with that really not interesting shot of the ball, the bloody bearing rolling towards Hugh Jackman and him seeing his reflection in it.
Yeah.
Which they call back to later in the film, and it accomplishes nothing.
They accomplish it later in the film, but earlier in the film.
Yes.
Because this movie does that like cliche 4 days earlier.
It starts in media res, and then it just goes back in time.
Back in time. How did we get here? Sort of thing. Which is...
We can pretty much just dive right into the plot on this. Basically,
I was going to say, like, we might as well.
Like, they're trying to capture on, like, the post-Matrix wave. This is another Warner Brothers picture, who also did The Matrix. They're like, let's try and make another movie in that light. Let's redefine action as, like, a Warner Brothers property for this time. Like a Dominic Senna. Hugh Jackman's coming right off of X-Men at this time, so he's, like, young but still cheap.
Yeah.
He's rising, so they get Hugh Jackman for cheap. John Travolta apparently turns this role down 6 times until Dominic Senna calls him personally and says, here's my pitch for this character. And then if you want to look up, there's some lovely interviews with John Travolta about this movie where he's like, he's very hyped up about his character and said quotes such as, let me find this. He said that his character is not black or white, he's gray.
That doesn't mean anything.
That doesn't mean anything.
In fact, his character actually is very black and white because he says in the film, he's like, we're going to fight terrorism with terrorism. There's no other way. That's not a gray area. That's a hardline stance.
He's like a Sith. He deals in absolutes. Here's a quote from John Travolta. John Travolta believes that Gabriel is a man who believes bad things have to be done for the greater good.
That's a pretty straightforward black and white clear-cut stance.
John, all of his interviews about this movie are him saying very obvious and specific things from the movie as if they are like a revelation.
That's one of his lines in the movie.
Yes.
Like that was written for him to say that.
Yeah, all of his lines in the movie are very explicit what his goals are, and then the press, John Travolta's like, yeah, I'm playing a really mysterious character, don't really know where he came from, and then like the movie's like, yeah, he's Exmo's.
He tells you his plan in the first 15 minutes.
He's a really bad like secret criminal. He's very bad at his job.
I almost want to like tie it to Castor Troy and Face Off.
Yeah.
A terrorist. I mean, that is probably the most gray villain, really, in the Travolta's like film repertoire, because like Castor Troy, it's like, does he have like an objective? It's like, no, he just wants to blow shit up. Like that is all he wants to do. He just likes being bad, which is probably the most like grayish there is, because he doesn't have like a belief system or like anything like that. But this guy clearly has like an objective and a gain. And not really gray.
So the movie starts off.
As
we've talked about.
And it starts off with this
amazing monologue from John Travolta.
Didn't we just, and like, I know, like, we covered Lucky Numbers in like last week. Isn't that like the same?
It starts off with his monologue.
Yeah.
Yes. We've now done 2 with a monologue.
With a monologue now. Where he's like, hi, I'm John Travolta. You're about to watch a terrible movie starring me.
But this one, like, it starts off.
Be gentle.
It starts with like VHS, like ripples and whatnot.
Yeah.
Cut to like immediate tilt shift image of John Travolta with this like soul patch.
Beautiful soul patch.
Should we get into that already? I kind of want to save it.
Yeah, let's save it for.
Save it for later.
Yeah,
we'll get to it later.
But he has the soul patch. He's staring right at the camera. And he just says all that shit I started this episode off by saying.
It should be said that like it starts off with like the Warner Brothers logo with the VHS graininess, but it's also like kind of like it's supposed to be indicative of like computer screens from back then and how like pixelated they were. Yeah. And so it's
hacking is
hacking,
crazy,
man.
Yeah, that was lost on me. I mean, I see it now, but like again, I was like 10. I didn't think that hard about what I was looking at.
Like, what is?
It's just a really shitty picture.
Yeah,
it gets clear.
Okay.
And then when it's going through the monologue, it's like this weird blurry. I have so many thoughts on like the cinematography of this movie and how it's like color graded and color corrected and like.
Why does it look like it's shot in Mexico?
Why is it green?
It's like green, but then it's also like this gross orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all has the color palette of like you said, like
Of
Breaking
like
Bad's
Bad
Mexico.
in Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the beginning monologue, it's like weird, like blurry, like
it's tilt
frames.
it's tilt shift. I was talking with Becca, my girlfriend, also the guest on Pulp Fiction. She was was occasionally watching parts of this movie with me. And she was like, yeah, that's tilt shift. And she kind of explained to me how it works. Like, instead of just, if you wanted to accomplish that effect with a regular lens and camera, you would have to, like, grab your nucleus or whatever your focus pulling thing is and just, like, pretty much have a stroke with it.
Okay.
But it's a specific type of lens that, like, is, can't think of the exact word, but it's distorted. So it creates that, like, in and out effect.
Okay.
Of, like, constantly shifting between what's in focus and what isn't in focus, and everything looks like it's kind of wavy. She was saying that we actually used it on the show we work on a few days ago to like show a character's loneliness in a scene, and, like get in their headspace, and that's generally the effect that it's used for in movies.
Right.
Is to accomplish like loneliness or a character's like frayed mental state. In this one, it's just seemingly to show that John Travolta's crazy.
Yeah, to show that he's nuts.
As he describes why most movies are bad because they're not realistic. He's pretty much like we said, this movie's calling its shot right off the bat. It's like most movies are unrealistic and bad. This movie's gonna be so realistic.
I can't even like. I don't want to skip through the movie and point out all the unrealistic parts of it. We're just going to get to it and call back this moment.
And he's specifically talking about Dog Day Afternoon, where he's like, those guys weren't real bad guys. You're going to see some real bad guys in this movie.
Well, it's funny because, he's talking about Dog Day Afternoon, which is about a heist. And how he's going to... that heist was bad, right? That's what he's saying. And so he's like, we're going to make a heist that's real. But then they make the hacking terrible. And they make the whole need, like, again, why did they go to a bank that's already connected to the internet to steal its money when they could have just done that from anywhere in the world? How is that a better heist?
And the heist is very poorly executed.
It's very poorly executed. They drive their Hummers right into the bank, and then they just strap a bunch of vests on people and immediately lose control of the situation. After telling you for the entire movie that he wasn't going to do that.
And the whole thing said, like, John Travolta's 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He always knows what's going to happen. And it's all just misdirection, Harry Houdini. But then, like...
Oh, my God, the heavy-handed
Very clearly,
Houdini
he just,
comments.
like, lucks his way into most of this happening.
Basically.
Like, his boy, Vinnie Jones, like, falls out of the back of the bus when it's flying through the air.
So the camera's like slowly pulling back on this monologue, and we see in this meeting that he's like talking to Don Cheadle and Hugh Jackman.
Yes. Hugh Jackman's on his side and Don Cheadle's on the other.
Yeah.
We don't really get introduced as to what's going on with any of these characters, just that Travolta and Jackman are holding up this bank with a bunch of hostages with bombs strapped to them.
Yeah, because like then like they get up from the table and the camera pulls back with them as they're walking, and then you just see like turn around, SWAT team like aiming their guns at John Travolta, and then they're like, hey, like back away guys, and he's holding like the dead man switch as they like walking across the street back to the bank where we see all the hostages with the bombs, and that's when like I think we have that first explosion.
Hugh Jackman looks concerned about it, but we don't know too much about him,
like what his involvement is, like because it seems like he's with Travolta,
but for some inexplicable reason they send one of their guys out with one of the hostages just to stand outside. And the SWAT team shoots the guy and grabs the woman with the explosive vest and pulls her away.
And Travolta is on a call with Don Cheadle at the time.
And he's like, "Don't do that."
It's like, "Don't do that. Like, if she gets out of the radius, she's gonna explode.
Not my fault. It's your fault."
And like, basically, everyone's like the world's largest claymore mine. They all have like, pellets or whatever.
It's
ball bearings.
C4 attached to their chest with these cylinders of 1-inch ball bearings.
Yeah.
That are act as shrapnel when the bomb goes off.
Yeah. So of course the cops don't know that, and they're just trained to like get hostages away, and they're literally like, "No, don't do that, don't do that."
And this woman's like screaming and trying to get back into the bank.
She's trying to get back, and the cops are dragging her away until eventually, doop.
Yeah, she explodes.
Explosion.
Cops just didn't know what was going on. Like, am I right, guys?
And this is a massive explosion that can,
As we said, it's 135 cameras are used for this explosion.
and it's shot in the style of that Matrix shot
Yeah, like
where Neo
bullet
dodges
time.
the bullets, where it does like a 360 swirl around.
Yeah.
It does that with like this explosion and like a wider angle because it's showing all the cars exploding, the glass shattering, the cops getting hit by the shrapnel, and like all the flames.
It is apparently the most complicated visual effect in Warner Brothers history at the time. More complicated than The Matrix.
I believe that. It
I
was in a
believe it,
larger,
too.
It's very
it was much
impressive.
larger scope.
Yeah.
And they make sure to show you the power of the explosion.
Yeah.
And they are constantly showing you the ball bearings punching through metal.
and
And
shock
ripping things
waves.
apart, the
And
shock
you're
wave,
seeing
yeah.
like glass. It's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of
Yeah.
business.
A lot of
this
things.
explosion.
And I have that written down in the later notes, especially when they talk about like hacking terms and the things like 12-bit encryption, 128-bit encryption, 1024-bit encryption, and all
Yeah.
worms, ciphers, hydras, and I'm just like, these are all just words that
Yes.
don't mean anything at all. And that's like this movie. There's so
Yeah.
many things that don't really mean anything at all.
And so that explosion happens, and then we cut back 4 days earlier.
4 days earlier, which does anybody like that
It
trope?
was at this point when I wrote in my notes, "the best movie ever?" Question mark. Because I'm like, this thing's already insane. I'm gonna love it.
And we're with this guy at an airport.
Yes.
Who's getting off the plane.
Let me. This guy has a
He's a
complicated name.
Finnish guy who seems to speak only German.
Yeah. The guy's name is Axel Torvalds. The character's name, not the actor. And he is a hacker.
He's a hacker who gets stopped in the airport because for some baffling reason, knowing he has to go through customs, he keeps an extra passport
With a fake name.
with a fake name inside of his briefcase. And that's how he gets caught.
Yeah. And so he like tries to run off with his suitcase and whatnot, and he's immediately caught by the TSA. Or TSA didn't exist at that point. It
No,
would
he's
be,
caught by the federal marshals.
Yeah.
And then they're interrogating. Don Cheadle comes in to interrogate him. And at some point, there's someone, the guy who plays Ethan in Lost, he pretends to be someone else, and he calls Don Cheadle out of the room. And then he enters the two-way glass, which for some, again, baffling reason is not bulletproof. And he kills,
Yeah, he
Axel,
kills Axel
Torvalds
Torvalds.
before he can give up any more of the very little information that he's already given Don Cheadle about John Travolta.
Yeah, Gabriel Schreier is John Travolta's
That's John
name.
Travolta's villain name.
Gabriel.
By the way, the guy Axel Torvald.
Yeah.
I recognize that actor from something.
Rudolph
And
Martin.
I just like I found out what it was. He plays like one of this like multi-season villain in NCIS who kills one of the main key characters like very abruptly, like suddenly. There's like a I don't know, like there's like a hostage situation or something, and like Gibbs and Kate, I think her name is, played by this actress who later went on to play the teacher in Shameless that Lip
Yeah.
has an affair with. And he shoots her in the head,
Yeah.
But he's like this big bad villain from like season 3 that goes all the way to like season 6 in NCIS, and like him and Gibbs have like a rivalry.
I've never seen an episode of NCIS, and this is all gibberish to me, what you're saying.
It's good to know this movie did a lot for his career.
I know, right?
He comes off of his 2 scene
Well, I just
roles.
like I thought he was pretty good in that NCIS role.
Yeah.
Like but I recognized him. Like, where do I know that guy from? Like, oh yeah, he
This
was that
movie
villain
has
from NCIS.
this movie has a lot of like, oh, that guy.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
Like I said, Vinnie Jones pops up in this movie and has one line or something like that.
And you know, Vinnie Jones is going to work with Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman again.
In X-Men: The Last Stand. So let me out here, I gotta pay. I'm the juggernaut.
Not bitch. But yeah, after he gets caught, there's like an oil mine scene.
Yes.
Where we see this.
Well, first, I just want to emphasize in that scene where Axel gets shot and whatnot. We're introduced to Don Cheadle, who is the investigator who's hunting down Gabriel.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know that he's hunting down Gabriel. He knows he's hunting down somebody. he's like in charge of hunting down hackers.
Yeah, that's like his like task force, I guess.
Well, he says he was removed from the task force because he shot a guy's hand, so he couldn't hack anymore. And now he's like, I'm a lone wolf now. I'm hunting down people for the FBI by myself.
He's a lone wolf who shows up with an entourage everywhere he goes.
Like, listen, he gets suspended for that shit. I'm not gonna realism, bitch.
Yeah.
He shoots someone in the hand. He doesn't lose his badge.
Well, he loses his position, but they still keep him on.
Oh gosh, does he still carry a gun in the FBI?
Yes.
Well,
He tries
okay.
to shoot Axel. He threatens to shoot Axel.
Realism.
But he leaves the room to answer a phone call from his director, and that's when John Travolta's like secret agent, like double agents, kill Axel through the
interrogation
non-bulletproof
room
glass.
the non-bulletproof glass.
Right before then, we hear Axel discloses that, John Travolta's not the guy you find. He finds you.
Yeah.
Which is, the best Hollywood trope. And then, he doesn't know anything about the guy. The guy doesn't deal with him directly. There's always like a middleman. And he just basically gives him nothing in this room. And then it's, of course, they build up the suspense of how badass John Travolta's character is by saying, like, if I say anything else, he's going to kill me.
And that's the thing that's interesting about this is like, there's a lot of build up to John Travolta like as this mysterious figure in these sections. Like it kind of feels like one of the like a James Bond movie where they're like kind of building up like your Blofeld or your Silver or whatever like
Well, it's
to
like
the reveal.
he's supposed to be like a Kaiser Sose like
but
figure.
the problem is all this build up. We've already met the guy. It's in the opening shot of the movie. It's him.
I guess, it does somewhat lend, because that opening monologue is somewhat mysterious, and
Yeah.
it does somewhat lend to that. But when we're actually introduced to him in the film, he's pretty
Normal.
pretty normal. He's pretty clear cut about his goals.
Yeah, because then after Halle Berry brings Jackman to Travolta, like there isn't anything about him where it's like the reveal for him isn't like, there's the guy. Camera cuts to back of the head, hair flip, Travolta, like none of that.
He just is at a table.
He's just at a table, like
at a club.
like you want to go. And this movie is full of let's talk somewhere else moments.
Yes.
Why? We just have to.
That's my favorite bit when they're at this like it's like a nightclub and he's like, well, like, so, all right, I agree to the deal. So what is it? And it's like, let's go to my house. And they go to his house and then like he's like, I don't know what's going on with this plan. Let's go for a ride. Like, there's so many of these like let's talk somewhere else moments. Like if you don't feel comfortable talking to your house, like where do you feel comfortable talking, my dude? Come on. And then are we at the oil mine scene?
Yeah, we're introduced to Hugh Jackman
and Halle Berry
in
in the same scene.
Playing Stanley Jobson and Ginger Knowles, which are real names that real people have.
Not Steve Jobs. It's Stanley Jobson.
That's really fucking good. I never even thought about that.
Well, like the guy who's like Axel Torvund is supposed to be like first off, it's like Axl Rose and like Linus Torvald, who is the guy who created the Linux operating system or Linux operating system or something. So there's a lot of these like little computer, which none of these guys were hackers. They were just computer
Honestly.
manufacturers.
Steve Jobs, just created a good company, like a big company.
Yeah, and
Profitable
like,
business.
The other Linux guy created like a good OS system.
Wait, Stuart, are you saying it's a Linux system?
It's a Linux system. I know this.
I know this. We gotta close the door. The Raptors are coming. Come on, Lex. The door. I can shoot it. No.
You can't hold it by yourself. They're coming through the glass. Don't. Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
good
movie.
fucking movie. You know what's great about Jurassic Park?
What?
They take an unrealistic concept and make it realistic.
Yes. As opposed to taking a realistic concept and adding a cube for some freaking reason.
Or taking a realistic concept and adding John Travolta to it.
Yes.
So anyway, Halle Berry drives up in this like, is she driving like a red Ferrari or a
something
Porsche
like that.
or something like a sports
It's some
car?
expensive rich people car.
Yeah, she comes out in this like very showy red dress. The camera's immediately showing her ass.
Yes.
Like almost immediately, I wrote down like, okay, so Halle Berry's a sex piece in this movie.
This movie draws the strangest correlation between sex and hacking. And like this, I don't know even what the intent is, but the movie's trying to basically, from what I can say, be like sex and hacking are the same thing. They're all about penetrating the system. Because
I mean, that's a pretty deep take.
like straight up every time there's a hacking scene, it's shot so sexually. There's always women with like licorice or like lollipops or something that they're sucking on. Dudes are always like, yeah, I'm gonna go hard on it. They like rapidly type on a computer. And it starts from this scene onward.
And also, like, not to like perpetuate stereotypes, but like hackers are not Hugh Jackman.
No.
Can we just agree to that right
Yes.
now? It's not the Hugh Jackman types. Or, for the love of God, if anyone else like shows me a Live Free or Die Hard picture with Justin Long as a hacker, I'm gonna lose my shit. Like, these are not hackers, guys.
John Travolta's look in this movie, in terms of like the soul patch and the hair, is what I would imagine a hacker to look like.
Don't bring that up quite yet. I can't.
I think the only person who credibly looks like a hacker is the guy they kill after he's on screen for 3 minutes.
honestly,
Axel
He's Axel
Yeah.
Torvald is the only believable hacker in this film. No respectable human, let alone a hacker, would have an earring like that. And yet Hugh Jackman wears it for the entire film.
There's some. This movie's a great reminder as to like what a cultural wasteland.
What a
this
time
was.
2001 was.
Yes.
So she shows up in her sports car, red dress. And we see Travolta playing golf in like this oil.
Hugh Jackman playing golf.
Who did I say?
You said Travolta.
Hugh Travolta. Hugh Jackman. They're basically the same guy. No. Playing golf, and he's supposed to be like bad at it. And Halle Berry comes up and like talks to him about, hey, my boss knows who you are and has a deal for
Yeah.
you. And he's like, I'm not in that business anymore. Like,
She's like, we were working with Axel Torvald, but he's not around anymore.
yeah, our other guy got caught or whatever. Yeah. So we hear you're the next best like hacker or whatever.
Yeah.
And we get a bunch of business exposition about Jackman's life, in the sense that like Jackman was recently put away for
18 months.
18 months
Because he hacked
an FBI carnivore program,
yes.
which was about. And here's the funny thing: they were listening in to people's like phone calls and emails and spying on American citizens.
Yeah.
And this is like 2 months before 9/11 happens,
Yes.
when the creation of NSA, and I don't know, that was a little part of the movie. Where
Pretty
I'm like,
forward thinking.
I was like, oh, okay, what's
realism, guys.
Realism. So they set him up as like this Robin Hood like hacker guy who like hacks for the people, you might
Yes.
say. He's like, I did what I thought was right, exposing the FBI carnivore program, which still ended up being a thing later on. Like they said, like he put it back 2 years, is what Don Cheadle says at one point. Still comes back though. So yeah, we learned that Jackman was put away for that hacking. He lost his daughter in like a
custody battle. Because he
And
went to
With
prison.
his wife, who now works for is now
is
married to a porn
and works
producer.
for a porn producer.
Yes.
Who is like just insert lazy, non-attentive mom.
Yes.
In the screenplay, that's what it is.
She's in like 2 scenes, and all of her shots involve her smoking a cigarette and
In a bathrobe.
in a bathrobe, and drinking like a half glass of vodka,
yeah.
but like a big glass.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand the relevance of that plot point.
Yeah.
Like, there was no need. This film is so
No.
hypersexualized
Yeah.
for absolutely no reason. And they were just sitting there in the writing room, and someone was like, you know what? What if the ex-wife was married to the porn king of Los Angeles? And they started clapping, and they said, you know what? That is the greatest idea I've ever heard.
You know what the stakes are going to be for this Jackman character? What if his daughter grows up and does porn for her stepdad? That's literally what the stakes are for Jackman in this. It's like, yes, it's like he wants to have his daughter back, and like, yes, he like doesn't have a lot of money, but ultimately what it comes down to, Halle Berry even says it in the movie, which is like, oh, well, is she going to grow up and do movies for her daddy? And I'm like, oh God, no. And those are literally the stakes for this movie for
Yes.
Jackman, is that.
He's like, my daughter does porn, or I go to jail.
And like the whole like outrageousness of like, because after like he like denies Halle Berry's offer for the first time, and then he like he kicks her out of his trailer, and then he is in his trailer and he gets on the phone with his ex-wife, that's where we first see her, like, in bed in a bathrobe, smoking a cigarette, drinking vodka, saying you'll never see your daughter again. Just like very like, like I watched A Marriage Story. Like I know how like divorces work. But also how black and white that is, and how this is just a very easily bad mom. It's not like their phone call went like, what's Hugh Jackman's name in this movie? Stanley. So
Stanley
it's like
Jobson.
It's like it isn't like, hey Stan, like we talked about this. You talk to your lawyer. He'll talk to my lawyer. We'll work out a thing where we can work some like custody things. Maybe you can see her on the weekend. Or no, Stanley, you can't see your daughter. You fought with alcohol for a few years. Like I really think she just stay. No, it's like you'll never see your daughter ever again.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't want to see you, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then Jackman opens up his trailer again. Halle Berry's still there. And it's like, what are you still doing here? And she happens to know everything about his life.
Yeah.
Like, whether she was eavesdropping in the trailer or she just knows. But she just repeats the exposition that we just learned from that phone call.
Yeah, after he shoves her out of his
Yeah.
No,
out of
he
his
yeets her. He like
yeets
picks her up and throws her.
Yeah.
of his building.
And then she hands him an envelope
It's like,
With
of
$100,000.
$100,000, and then he opens it and there's $40,000 in there, and he's supposed to be really, he's like a super smart hacker, and he sees 4 stacks of $10,000 and just says, "That's $100,000, perfect."
it's very strange.
And then
Clearly the
then
props
she
department ran out of
says,
money.
this is the you can use this money right now and hire a lawyer, but they're just going to pay 4 times as much,
Yeah.
which is like totally arbitrary.
And so this money now is just to meet with him. And he's like, who is this guy that you work for? And she says, he exists in a world beyond your world.
Which again means nothing.
Listen, we
and-
know the Matrix was good, guys.
And so I remember this is like a cross-cut sequence where it's like cutting between Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry talking, and then John Travolta arriving at a nightclub. And then the FBI, like Don Cheadle and all of them, like dealing with the dead Axel Torvald. It's just being like, what is going on with this guy? Who is he?
Yeah.
When there's also some business with a senator that doesn't last long.
Yeah, well, this was the weird part about it, was like, who was Gabriel? Like, is he like a terrorist? Is he a gang leader? Is he
he's
a mob boss?
U.S. I mean, we'll get to it at the end.
We get to it at the end, but it was just this weird like business with him and the senator. Like, I don't know. I had a lot of it'd be one thing, we talked about this before, but Broken Arrow.
Yes.
The little information we get about John Travolta as a bad guy in that movie, like, works because we don't care. Like, we obviously don't care, but this movie tells us that we have to care about Gabriel, and we have to care about who he is and what his motives are. But it changes all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So yeah, the senator bit was a little.
Yeah,
The
so-
senator bit just sets up the super fun Porsche car chase scene in 40 minutes, but does not advance the plot whatsoever.
Not at all.
Because it actually, in a way, it undermines Gabriel's character, because
He's
we
not
think
that boss.
He's not the boss.
Right.
He starts off the movie as the boss, and then, we sort of learn about his mysterious qualities over the next like 20 minutes of the film as we meet all the other characters, and then we just find out that he's not even running the operation. And you're like, wait a second, what's the point of that? Like, why is there someone else involved?
Yeah. So
Yeah, because like the senators, Sam Shepard plays the senator. He's like, there's so much craziness that a hacker got killed. We got to contact our guy, and then we don't see him again for like 20 minutes until he dies. But Hugh goes to meet with Travolta, goes to meet with John at a nightclub.
yeah.
And what a scene this is! What a scene this is!
This is the scene that takes the cake for. I mean, we're going to keep in mind that Halle Berry will be topless later in the film, but this is the scene that takes the cake for the hypersexualization of this film for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
So Jackman walks in
into this like
private den area of this nightclub.
Like the lighting of this club. See, I'm actually kind of a fan of how this movie looks. I like the cinematography of this movie, like just the colors. It's a very Michael Mann like influenced look for this movie.
Okay.
And it actually uses the same cinematographer that Michael Mann will use in Collateral a few years later. Another very good movie.
It's a good movie.
It's a great movie. We should talk about Collateral. But
This is now a Tom Cruise themed
yeah,
podcast.
what if we segued from one Scientologist to another? we just do cruise. We just do cruise control.
Can't keep
and we
talking
cover
about
all-
Scientology.
we have to call cruise control and we talk about Tom Cruise. But no. So this movie, in both its... What I said about this movie is that in both its aesthetics and its thematics, it's trying to be a Michael Mann movie. It's like a late stage, like your Black Hats, Miami Vices, Collateral. But it doesn't have any of the humanism that Michael Mann puts into his movies. So it just ends up being like this very aggro like movie about hackers and like the systems of society with no human element to it. And that's how we get a scene like this.
Yeah, this nightclub where he walks into this like private area where Travolta and his like gangs and
Yeah.
girls are all hanging out. And, you know, they're talking. He's like, yeah, so, what does he say? He was like, yeah, so I know this, like, I was told it's like this DOD mainframe, like hacker key or whatever takes like 60 minutes to hack. And Jackman's like, oh, yeah, like.
Yeah, he says the best hackers in the world couldn't hack this in an hour.
Yeah.
You're going to do it in 60
You're
seconds.
going to do it in 60 seconds.
And then in comes random lady number one, as written in the
Yes.
script.
Well, there right before this are, like Jeff mentioned earlier, a series of women who we believe are, you know, strippers or, you know, ladies of the night sucking on lollipops in the corner
Yes.
so seductively.
Yeah.
And Travolta like snaps his finger. One of them comes over and like puts her elbow on Jackman's shoulder, and then he turns the computer. Travolta turns the computer around. And is like, "You have to do it in 1 minute." And Hugh Jackman's like, "What?" And then Vinnie Jones pulls out a gun and points it at Jackman's head. And this woman just starts sucking on Jackman's dick and giving him a blowjob at the same time.
So he was like, let's just set the stage here. Jackman goes to meet Travolta. Travolta has a job offer, but he's not telling him what the job offer is. He just gives him this impossible hacking job to do.
Just hack the government in
He
1
says,
minute.
hack the government in 1 minute. By the way, we're going to hold a gun to your head, and I'm going to have one of my workers give you a blowjob
Yeah.
during that.
So he's all about like the rush of hacking, like if it's sex.
Can we just talk about like Jackman's performance during this scene? He's like, oh god, like, literally, he's like trying to like hack, and he's like getting access denied. And Travolta, I will say, like, a good thing about Travolta is he's the best like villain, suspenseful like villain like line delivery
Yeah.
guy.
It is the way he delivers his
He's like,
lines.
30,
Yeah.
20. 19
Yeah.
and he just keeps like counting down, and he's like, oh, access denied.
I have never seen more sweat on screen
When it
with
starts-
Jackman here than since Danny Aiello and Do the Right Thing. It's the sweatiest cinema has been in 10 years.
Yeah, it's when it starts and he first starts getting the blowy and he's confused, and you just got, you know, he's got his watch up and he's like, that's 55 seconds, Stan. And you're like, and just the way he's so calm, like Philip Seymour
Yeah.
Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah.
And you're just like, all right, so this dude is cold-blooded. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he says it again. Well, that's 50 seconds, Stan. And he still has no idea what's going on. And then he proceeds to, I don't know if you've ever, like, tried to type with a cat on your lap. You know what I mean? But it's, like, really, really hard to keep your elbows elevated. And... I mean, I don't know how to hack, but like type that fast at the same time, and that's like essentially what's happening here.
And the thing that's fun is Jackman like very clearly is not typing the keys that are appearing on the screen.
Of course not.
Well, they show an insert of him, and his fingers are touching multiple keys at the same time, and the clicks don't
Match the screen.
match the amount of text that's appearing on the screen, which it never does. And I get that, like, some things we just have to accept for what they are. But this is one of the most egregious displays of hacking in the world.
This movie is very specifically about hacking. They don't get the hacking right.
Yeah. And so he's like constantly trying to like get into this mainframe and getting access denied until eventually he runs out of time.
Mm-hmm.
And what's his name?
Vinnie Jones.
Vinnie Jones like pulls the trigger, but it's
empty.
It's
There's-
empty.
there's no
There's no
bullets.
bullets in there. And he's like,
they all start
I'm
laughing.
just joking with you.
But then we see he actually succeeded
He
at hacking into the
succeeded.
government in 1 minute.
Well, like here's the thing that was confusing, because they do bring this moment back
Yes.
with like the bank robbery scene, and like to me, it's like I kind of took it as he failed. Like he couldn't get it in 60 seconds. He got it in 61 seconds. Because it was like right after his last attempt when he pulls the trigger, and then like it's like click, access granted, like after the 60 seconds.
To be fair, he does nothing for 15 of those seconds.
It's true.
He stands there like, what's going on? And he's like, why is this woman like?
Yeah. And this is kind of a small thing for me, but they don't like clearly show Jackman getting finished. Like he just like. He breathes like a sigh of relief, and then like the woman like lifts up her head, and he like zips up his pants. But like there isn't like ever like a access granted, yes. There isn't like a little pause where he like orgasms or anything. So like, I don't know if like he was even hard during that.
He's just very sweaty,
you know, because like
the orgasm for Hugh Jackman are the friends he made along the way.
Well, like not to bring back an older episode, but Carrie.
Yes.
There's a blowjob scene in Carrie.
Yes, with John Travolta.
With John Travolta. And
he's hooting and hollering in that scene.
He's hooting and hollering in that one. And I'm pretty sure, I'm looking back at the notes, bringing up, is there an orgasm moment there?
You absolutely have notes about. Oh my God, look at how big your notes used to be. How long?
I know, right? A lot of good things, blah, 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 evangel phenomenal. Blowjob scene. She keeps saying his name while doing it. That's right. I remember that bit. I remember like in Carrie when she was like giving him head, but she keeps saying his name, and I had this whole weird thing about it where it's like, what was the name of that movie? It's like
Carrie.
No, what his name in that?
It's like Tommy or something.
Tommy or
something
Jack or something like that.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter because this is important. I need Billy. So it's because it's like you just see like the back of her head, hair wise, like receding and going back down, like as if she's giving him a blowjob. But then you just hear Billy, it's like constantly because she's trying to like tell him like to hurt and ruin Carrie's life.
Yes,
for the whole detention thing.
It's crazy.
Cut to this scene with Jackman,
and he succeeds. So then Travolta hires him, and he says, "We'll pay you $10 million total if you help us recover $9.5 billion in government funds."
Well, and where he doesn't say that at the nightclub though, because like after that scene, like Jackman like walks away, and Halle Berry like chases him down. He's like, "What the fuck was that? You did in my back there, or whatever." And like, oh, they're in the bathroom. And this is another hyper-sexualized moment because like he runs to the bathroom and he's like freaking out, and Halle Berry chases him into the bathroom, and they're like talking about this, like, "You didn't have my back there. I'm in too deep with this. I can't go back to jail." And then these two guys walk in and they just start making out in the bathroom
to get them to leave.
Why? Like, is it like too weird that a man and a woman would be talking in the bathroom, but not weird if they were making out in the bathroom?
That seems to make it weirder to me.
Right.
Because it's the men's room.
It's the men's room.
It is a nightclub, though, and people do the hanky-panky in nightclub bathrooms, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But also, like, if I walked into a men's bathroom in a nightclub and I saw, like, a dude and a girl talking, I would still just, like, go to the urinal and, like, you know, be like, "Oh, this is fine. This is normal."
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
I mean, they'd just be quiet, and then I'd be like, "Oh, we shouldn't talk about our terrorist hacking scam in front of these people." But no, instead it's like, "Oh my God, these two guys walk in, make out," and that's their cover up. And then the two guys who are like probably last minute day player hires, they're like 96 and 97 on the call sheet. This will walk in, they're like, "Oh, like we should give these guys some privacy," and they like walk out, and they're all like nervousy acting.
You know, going off of how Matrix inspired this movie is, which insane amount. I'm pretty sure this is just the club that Neo goes to at the beginning of the first Matrix. It's playing the same kind of music, except for there's no Dragula playing in this club, which is my favorite thing about the Matrix. The club's playing Dragula.
Rob Zombie. Oh my gosh, yeah.
But it's pretty much the same kind of music. It looks like the same club. It's the same vibe.
It might be the same set, to be honest.
Very much. They might just held it over from the
Matrix. Stage. Like, imagine they shot it on a stage or whatever, and they just built the nightclub and from the Matrix, and they kept that set open. Like, "Hey, we'll just use this set that they used."
I mean, they wouldn't have had to hold on to it for that long because the Matrix would have only just come out 2 years before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
It might be the same club.
if I was Warner Brothers, like,
Warner Bros. Just has one club they use in every movie.
honestly, though, that might be a thing. They might be like,
Yeah.
we just have like a basic nightclub set that where any of our movies needs to use a nightclub. Like, we have one. And
It's the same nightclub they use in The Dark Knight, in the scene where Eric Roberts gets taken by Batman. Where his wife's like, can't we hear each other talk? And he's like, what makes you think I want to hear you talk? And then Batman comes in and punches him and throws him off the building.
the fall won't kill me. I'm considering.
I'm counting on it.
So anyway, he like goes back to Travolta, Jackman does,
Yeah,
and says like, all right, I'm in. And he's like, okay.
I'll help you get your daughter back.
Like, what's the deal? And it's like, let's go somewhere else. Cut to his house,
Yes.
his mansion. And
Travolta's
that's
not so secret lair that
not so
everyone knows
secret.
about.
It's like clearly on a mountain in LA where you can definitely like see it.
And they hold their meetings in front of the big glass windows or outside.
Yeah.
Where, the
And
camera
FBI
can get an even
immediately
better
gets
shot.
photos of them all.
Yeah.
I
The
thought
FBI
that was
gets pictures of
so
him.
cool when I was a kid. They're up there and they're taking the pictures. And then it snaps to the last one, and it's just John Travolta looking straight into the lens of this camera that's a mile away. And I was like, this movie's so badass.
I'm like, this dude knows
I'm
what's
like,
going on.
He's so
Knows.
many steps ahead that he doesn't even care.
It's like the Jason Bourne moment when he's like talking to the CIA person on
Yeah.
the phone. He's like, where will we? It's like, well, I'm not in the office right now. It's like, yeah, you are. Your assistant just walked out. Click. And it's like, oh shit, Jason Bourne was watching her the whole time.
Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne.
Get some
Except in
sleep,
that
you look
film,
tired.
he's not really not that far away. He's on like the building across the street with the rifle. You know what I mean? Like, these cops are like across this valley with a super telephoto lens, and he just happens to look specifically where that house is, right down the barrel of that camera.
That's good shit,
This
man.
movie is so absurd.
So, and that's when he tells him about like the whole deal about, they show him like this supercomputer room,
Yes.
with all these screens. Like, this is where we're gonna hack into this
$40
bank
million computer.
and you're gonna plant a hydra, like a series of worms, not just one worm. You're gonna plant a hydra.
I don't even know what worms are.
What?
And now you're adding another layer.
Well, that's what I wrote down later in this movie. It's like there's just a lot of things and words that are useless, like Hydra, 12-bit encryption, 128-bit encryption, worms and hydras and firewalls.
You have to go into this movie with a basic knowledge of hacking, seemingly, to understand it.
Or you have to go into this movie with zero hacking knowledge, because if you do, none of it's going to make any sense. Like, if at least for me, it's like, well, Hydra sounds like a big hacking thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a worm with a bunch of heads. It's like, okay, I see. It's clearly more powerful than a regular worm.
Yeah, right. It's not a bug. It's not a worm. It's a Hydra. And then above a Hydra is a chimera.
Yeah.
But right before this, he explains that
Where-
the DEA has been sitting on $400 million for this covert operation they had been running in the 80s.
Called Operation Swordfish.
Yes.
Dun-dun-dun!
Never saw that coming. And then, obviously, now it's been 15 years and it's $9.5 billion. We still don't know what he wants this money for. We just know that he wants it.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
Talk about the exchange rate on that.
I was reading some trivia this morning, and I read that one of the goofs in this film is that in order to achieve $9.5 billion off of $400 million in 15 years, you would need a 21%
Interest rate.
rate of return, which would be impossible given the economic climate of the 80s and the 90s. And what we really should have expected was more of a 6% rate of return, which would have resulted in about $980 million, about 10% of what this film is predicated on.
For every dollar that
Can I just like give an applause for the math on that?
But like the thing that I don't understand is when they were writing this movie, they were just like, what seems like a decent amount of time for 400 million to become 10 billion? And again, they would just started throwing out ideas. One guy was like, I don't know, what, 15 years? That sounds right? Like, okay. And they said, that's a good amount of time. The DA wasn't doing anything in the 60s. It only would have happened in the 80s. And then it's just for no reason we have this limited window in which this money grows.
Yeah, and also like they're just casually like they could have made the number higher.
They
like,
could have
could've
made the number higher.
Yeah, the government had 5 billion. It's now 10 billion. Instead of the absurd logic jump of $400 million becoming 9.5 billion in a bank, and the DEA just forgot about it.
Oh, see, I kind of like that it starts at 400 million because that to me that's like a paltry number to the federal government. So that seems forgettable to me.
Yeah.
Whereas 5 billion, if they started
Yeah.
at 5 billion, that would seem a little bit. That would take us out of the sheer realism that is this film.
Yes.
Whereas the $400 million growing seems like something like, oh, okay, it was an accounting error and we just forgot about that bank account. Oh my God, look, it's full of cash. But they could have also just made the time a little bit longer.
Yes.
They could have made it way more reasonable.
They could have been like, yeah, they put it in there in the 50s.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. So it's at that point I'm like just starting to write my general thoughts on the movie so
Yeah.
far, which kind of goes with the whole like useless words and things that don't make any sense. The lighting and design of the film, a lot of green. Everything's like tinted slightly green and orangey red.
Very Michael Mann.
It is very Michael Mann, but
It's very Heat, Thief, Collateral.
And
Black Hat.
there was a specific scene where Don Cheadle is talking to these like technicians, and they see security camera footage from the airport.
Yeah.
And like the room that they're in is lit with like these green bulbs, and like there's like a weird like moody lighting, and I'm just thinking like, this is an FBI office, right?
Yeah.
Like, why is this like the lighting choice for a scene like this? It's like, oh well, it's like tech guys, and they're all like, you know,
Realism.
technology is cool and green.
What-
And,
And we all know that IT departments use nothing but fluorescent lighting.
Yes.
It's awful in there.
right. So
When it comes to something like that, I don't mind that, and I prefer like the movie just making a look happen than trying to accomplish realism, as long as it's consistent. Like if it was just one scene in the movie that looked like that, I'd be like, eh. But when you just make the whole movie these like abrasive like fluorescent greens and oranges and whatnot, I'm like, okay, so they picked a look and they're sticking with it for this movie. They want it to look matrixy and computery for whatever reason.
Which is weird because so little of it takes place on a computer.
Yes.
Less
Yeah.
than 6 minutes of the film is actually computers.
Yeah.
And really, 5 minutes of that is the hacking montage we're about to see.
Yes.
right.
This movie's all about hackers. There's actually not that much hacking going.
So little hacking.
So I think it's at this point that it's the next day. Jackman walks out into the pool, and Halle Berry's there, just topless.
Yes.
Why?
She's reading a book, and she lowers the book, and she's topless.
Why? Because
For
she's
no reason.
sunbathing.
Halle Berry, supposedly, she says this is not true, but the rumor mill in Hollywood continue to perpetuate it, so it might be true. Who knows? That she got paid an extra $500,000 to be topless in that one scene. Like she got a $2 million paycheck for this movie, and it was and they added an extra 0.5 for the topless scene.
I'm just.
So I didn't know she was topless in the scene because, like I had said before, I've seen this movie probably 10 times on TBS.
Yes.
And of course, you know, you can't show that. And it was only like later that I was like on the internet one day, and I was honestly probably looking at things about Swordfish because I thought it was the coolest movie of all time. And I stumbled across this Google image, and it was the actual Halle Berry shot, but she was topless. And I was like, wait, what? And then it would be years before I actually saw the movie, not on TBS, where I would see it the way it was actually shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So Halle Berry.
Yes.
She has her boobs out in
and,
this movie.
And what does she tell him to do? She's like, she says something about his
well,
family.
She tells him that if
he needs to borrow like her car.
Yes.
Because
'cause
he
he's
wants to
gonna
go see his daughter.
Yeah. And then she says, if you're going to go visit your daughter, you might want to think about a change in wardrobe. Just saying.
Because he's wearing the same clothes like
Yes.
from before.
And
Like,
he does spruce up a little bit.
Yeah. He gets that nice jacket that he'll subsequently tear in a 6.5 minute scene where he rolls down the side of the.
I have a lot of
hill.
thoughts about that.
that I learned that hill they rolled down, they shot at 3 different locations for that hill.
I mean, no, there isn't a hill in the world that's that tall.
No.
Okay. So right before this, the FBI gets the pictures of them on the rooftop. And Don Cheadle was the one who put away Jackman like 2 years prior.
Yeah.
And so he's like, this guy's in on this. We're going to pick him up. And
so Jackman goes and sees his daughter.
yeah, he picks her up at school.
Which beforehand, his daughter gets out of school, and her mom's clearly not there to pick
she's
her up.
passed out.
She's passed out, drunk. So she calls, and her mom doesn't pick up. And then she gets on the phone. It's like, "Hi, yellow cab taxi service." like she's done this
Yeah.
before, and it's like
Also, this girl is such a not Lindsay Lohan. Like, she looks so much like Lindsay Lohan around 2000. It's really distracting. I kept being like,
They went
"Is
to
that-"
Family Dollar and they found the first Lindsay Lohan they could
They got
get.
the discount Lindsay Lohan, the Walmart brand Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah. So then that's when Jackman comes out, and they have a nice quick
Yeah.
moment.
He's like, I missed you. And he's like, I have a way to get back with you. And so he drives her home and drops her off. And then the FBI pulls up.
Yeah.
Jackman has no idea why they're picking him up. He thinks it's because he blew his parole and left Texas and seek his family.
Oh, see, I thought it was because in the nightclub scene, he says, I'm not allowed anywhere near a computer.
Yeah.
And I had assumed that's what he was talking about, is he thought that they had, because he's freaking out in the bathroom, and then the FBI rolls up less than 24 hours later, and they're like, hey.
He's not sure what. I think there's like 3 separate things he could possibly be getting picked up for. And they're actually after him for the one that he does not think about, which is that he was spotted with Gabriel.
Yeah, well, they just want to talk to him.
Yeah.
They don't actually want to arrest him.
So he elbows one of the agents in the face.
A chase scene ensues. And so...
chase is a bold word.
Yeah, it is a bold word. It's mostly on foot, right? Or does he get in a car?
It's mostly on foot.
It's mostly on roll. There's not much foot.
Because he hits the elbows of the guy in the face and he dents his car door, a car door which later will not be dented. And so the guy's nose is bleeding and he takes off and they're all grabbing at him, but no one can get him. And he keeps running and he gets to the edge of that cliff and he's got to jump or he's going to get, taken away for whatever he thinks he's going to get taken away for. So he jumps. And then Don Cheadle
jumps after him.
I'm getting too old for this shit. Almost delivers that line and then just jumps off after him.
Yeah.
And then a third guy's like, damn, and jumps off as well.
The third guy who's going to do nothing. A third guy whose name we don't even learn jumps off with him.
He gets like a joke line where he's like, I don't know about this, and he jumps off.
And then after what feels like, it's honestly probably a minute of them falling down this hill.
A good long minute.
A very long, many cuts.
Have you guys seen Hot Rod?
No.
Okay, the Andy Samberg movie. There's like a 4-minute sequence in the middle of Hot Rod where he falls down a hill, and it's just 4 minutes of him rolling down the hill. It's like the camera shows it's a very small hill, but then it's just 4 minutes of him rolling down. And he finally comes to rest, and then he just rolls over again. And it's just like comically overlong. You're like, the hill is not this tall.
Well, they're rolling down this hill, and nobody's dying. Nobody's neck is being snapped. Nobody's arms are being broken. And eventually they get to this tarp, and they start to roll, but slightly more controlled. They have about 6% more control than they did before. And they keep rolling down, and they make it to the bottom. And the agent, whose nose has just been crushed by, pre-jacked Hugh Jackman, just shows up at the bottom of the hill with his car and hits Hugh Jackman.
Who then gets falls down to the ground, and then Don Cheadle pops a bullet in the air. He's like, "Stop!" Bang! He just fires a gun in the air, and that apparently he puts his hands up.
You know what, aside from the obvious, makes the hill so funny is just the shots of this. They have at least 40 points of coverage for this hill.
Oh yeah, I mean it's cut so badly.
They're all just of stunt guys just rolling down a hill covered in dirt.
And we know that the fall was bad because when Hugh Jackman reaches the bottom, the shoulder of his brand new jacket is ripped.
Yeah.
And that's about all the evidence we have.
Rolled.
Don Cheadle's a little dirty. His suit's a little nasty.
Yeah.
But the person who really has suffered the worst of this is the man whose nose was broken.
Yeah.
And who has just hit
Everyone
Hugh
else
Jackman
is
with
fine
his
for
car.
falling down a quarter-mile hill, seemingly.
So Don Cheadle gets Hugh Jackman and talks to him. He's like, "What? Why did you run for?" And it's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "What do you think I was gonna bust you for your parole for just seeing your family?" And he's like, "No." And then that's when he talks to him about Travolta, and he's like, I think he's asking him for his help, but
Yeah.
He says, what are the odds of the 2 best hackers in the world being in LA at the same time? What is that?
Jackman's like, I'm a fiend for Disneyland.
Yeah, that's what he says.
So
they let him go.
They let him go.
And he just goes back and he's like, what the shit is happening, guys?
He goes back to the house and starts hacking again. Right?
This is when the hacking montage starts. So he gets back to the house he sits down at the computer with its 9
Yeah.
screens.
This is maybe the most sexual scene I've ever seen in a movie, and there's no like sex involved. It's just Hugh Jackman getting it off at hacking,
and he's like
"Oh, yeah."
congratulating himself, and he's like throwing his fist up in the air.
There's one point where he stands up and just starts thrusting at the monitor.
I mean, that's how I hack personally.
Well, it's like when we're describing this scene, this all seems like bits that I can imagine Travolta doing, but it's not. It's Hugh Jackman. And here's the thing. Here's my ultimate problem with this. They got the casting wrong. It was Hugh Jackman that should have been Gabriel.
And Travolta should have been the over-the-top hacker.
Travolta should have been the over-the-top Stanley Jobson hacker. Because imagine this scene with John Travolta doing
It would have been some face-off level nonsense.
It would have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
It would have been amazing. But like Hugh Jackman, who is like a great actor. He's a good actor. At this time, he's like just okay. He's coming off of the first X-Men movie. And that's pretty much all he's really known for at the time.
Yeah, he had done Australian theater and then X-Men.
Yeah.
So,
which is crazy.
like, Jackman's doing all right. But the entire time I was watching the scene, I'm like, good God, if Travolta was doing this. Like, and I was waiting for like one villainous scene that just shows the villain's like craziness with no context behind it. Like,
I think
you
we
know
get
those
that.
movies. Well, but you know those movies where there's no purpose for showing a villain doing something, but you do it to show like sort of their inner soul moment.
Yeah.
Like I'm just imagining like there's got to be a scene I can draw back to that like would make more sense, but I'm blanking. But
Like an intro villain scene.
To like paint a picture, like the idea of like a henchman walking into like the villain's like office and it's full of like decor that like personifies her character, and what's the villain doing? He's like he has like a pet cat and he's playing violin. Like I was waiting for a scene like that with Travolta, like, but in some sense, and this would have been that scene of Travolta just like gloriously hacking and like thrusting into the air and basically having orgasms.
Yeah.
Just missed opportunity. Missed opportunity, in my opinion.
So this is the hacking and he's building a cube.
Yeah.
Sam, do you know anything about what's happening?
Tell us
here?
about the cube hacking method, Sam.
It makes absolutely no sense. So, well, first off, when you're hacking, you don't sit there at a computer and type away until you get what you want, because that would just take, I mean, especially with like 128-bit encryption is real. So it's 256-bit, 512, 1024. All as you go up in numbers, it's the harder it gets. But no respectable hacker would sit down for Hugh Jackman probably does this in about 3 hours in the film. That's probably what the montage covers. But no one would do that. They would just write a program and wait for the program to do it itself. But instead, he very artistically assembles this digital cube, which is supposed to represent the Hydra. And it's got, I mean, it must have 18 points on it of all these little pieces. And we see him come and go as he fails and as he succeeds, and the cube gets bigger and bigger. And then finally he finishes the cube, which is represented on the 9 screens in front of him?
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, I know it's 2001 and I can't be like, why didn't they just have like 3 ultra wides? You know what I mean? Or just like 3 nice monitors for this guy. This is what the best they had. But he finally assembles this cube and the montage just ends. And he puts it on a nice little CD, which again makes no sense.
He prints the hack to the CD-ROM.
I mean, I would have. What if they'd included that in the film? You know, him like hitting the burn button, and then we see the bar slowly going up, and then it pops out of the disk drive, and that's the end of the montage. Like that's how exciting that whole hacking scene was. And it seems like they're trying to make an action film out of something that's not actiony, and it fails so miserably. In Casino Royale, they take a poker game, like a 40-minute poker game, and they turn it into like an action sequence.
I watched Casino Royale recently, and that poker game is more exciting than the action scenes in that movie.
It holds up. Every action scene in that movie, and they turn that high-stakes tension into action. But with this, it's just this. It's like an SNL skit of what like. If it feels like someone, like, a president had been like, hacking is the greatest threat to this country, and then Saturday Night Live made a skit where Hugh Jackman was the hacker and he was taking down the world. Like, it makes no sense.
Careful, you're making some good points here. Generally having some thoughts about that.
And obviously the best part is he's got this awful earring that's in 90% of the shots.
Oh, God.
So that scene finishes. He's got he's
so
got it
does
on a
he.
disc,
Hey.
and he decides that he needs a little bit more wine because the best hackers in the world work when
Drunk.
their brain is all murky.
drunk.
So he goes down to the wine cellar of this villa, and this is when we're really introduced. This is like our first Harry Houdini moment
Yeah.
of the film. When he's going down there minding his own business, and he grabs the bottle of wine, and he sees
A frozen
none other
corpse.
than a frozen corpse of John Travolta. And he's like, what the fuck?
And then he runs back upstairs, and who does he see?
John
The real
Travolta.
John Travolta.
Who delivers the line, "You okay
look-
there, Stan? You look like you've just seen a ghost." As if we couldn't be more
On the nose.
on the nose about what's going on. And then this brings up what you had said earlier. We can't talk in my home. We have to talk somewhere else.
Let's go for a ride.
So they go for a ride in the Porsche, which starts what, as a child, I thought was the second most badass scene of this movie, behind obviously the
first explosion.
ball bearing explosion at the
Yeah.
beginning.
I think we skipped over one scene. The scene where Halle Berry reveals herself as a DEA agent.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what happens when he
we
first
did
comes
miss-
home. This is before the hacking montage, and we discover that she's allegedly
Yeah.
an agent for the DEA.
Yes.
And so he walks in on her like mid undress.
Yeah, she's nearly nude, removing a wire.
Yeah. She has like a wire attached to her.
She's
and-
like,
And of course, she's in the mansion of the guy who she's wearing a wire to capture.
yes.
And she's changing with the door open, or cracked at least.
And Jackman just walks in and she's
And
like,
Jackman just walks in, which is what any respectable man does when he sees a woman changing with a cracked door.
and Travolta does like the same thing right after he walks in as well.
and just sees Jackman and Halle Berry almost
nearly
nude,
nude.
and he's like, "Oh, this looks friendly." And the best performance Halle Berry can ever do in a situation like this, she's just like, "Well, you know me, you know I'm friendly." What? That's the line? That's the line, guys? That's the final draft that you print and put on the sides on day
Yeah.
13?
So she reveals she's a DEA agent.
Yes.
And that
If
she just needs Stanley to do his job and get out so she can collect. So even though she's been around John Travolta, while he literally explains word for word his plan, none of that is usable
Yeah.
by the DEA. So it's
Yep.
believable that she's still there. She needs to collect more information. And so she tells him, just do the job, get your daughter back, get your money, and just get the fuck out because it's not worth it,
Yeah.
to be around for this.
We're after gay real, not you. So yeah. Okay, so now we're in the Hugh Jackman, John Travolta car scene.
well, yeah, and this whole thing, all these scenes. I want to just talk about the score of this movie for a second, because it is everything. Like every movie from this time period, for some reason, has to have this techno score. It's like,
It's that Matrix, like
Yeah.
gritty, like techno, like.
Have you guys seen AI Artificial Intelligence? I have the
Nah.
Spielberg movie.
Fucking no, I have.
So great movie.
Fucking great.
And John Williams does the score for that.
It's amazing.
And it's a very John Williamsy score.
That's a surprise.
Except for there's one scene where
Is this
like
the Coliseum
no,
scene?
it's where these techno bikers pop out.
Oh,
And
right.
I want to time travel back to John Williams, who like usually does these classic or doing this scene. It's like it's like all these bikers just ripping through, trying to steal Haley Joel Osment, and I want to see John Williams at the fucking mix table.
I imagine him, with one of those like little tables that Mike Shinoda of Linkin Park had, and he's just mashing buttons on stage.
63-year-old like John Williams, just like. Anyway, the car scene.
Yeah. So they're in the car, and I don't even remember what the contents of their conversation were about, but as soon we find out, like, oh, he has a tail, there's somebody following them. So then Travolta's like, hold on for a second. So then he like veers his car around, and that one tail turns into two tails, and they're getting followed by like 7 to 8 like SUVs.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be government vehicles.
Yeah.
Even though we spent so little time talking about
The
senator
Yeah.
that we totally forget that the government would even want him, or that the senator would have maybe sent men after him because he calls off the operation. It doesn't really. We're kind of confused as to where these SUVs come from.
Yeah.
And why they couldn't have the conversation in the house. If Gabriel is 3 steps ahead, he should be knowing that if he leaves, he's going to have a government tail or tail of anyone, really.
Like,
Right.
You know what Travolta says right before this car chase begins, though? He just says, "Have you ever heard of Harry Houdini?"
That's
Oh,
right.
yes.
He does tell him about the Harry Houdini story.
He explains the misdirection, and that's what ties us into...
This is how Hugh Jackman was inspired to do The Prestige 5 years later off of this scene.
I like to believe that. I'm okay with that.
That's all
I'm
right.
okay with the universes being connected.
But my favorite part of this is I brought the quote up because I wanted to just like be able to say it in its glory. Travolta says, he's like, "Well, he wasn't like today's musicians who are only interested in television ratings," which Travolta is like explaining that he's like has a deep understanding of the history of magicianry in this country. He's like, he was an artist. He could make an elephant disappear in the middle of a theater. Do you know how he did that?
it? Misdirection.
What the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind believes. And then a bunch of government vehicles attack them, and it turns insane.
And like, here's the thing where it really took a step to the next level because I thought it was just going to be a car chase. That's it. He's gonna do a cool drift into an alley and lose them. Then you just see like it drifts, gets into an alley, and a garbage truck covers them up, and you just see like a cutaway shot where it cuts to like a hood mount where you see them sitting, and then SUVs driving past them, unknowing where they are. That's where I thought the scene was heading.
No.
But then
This
the
turns
two
into-
SUVs pull up. John Travolta says, "Take the wheel." He holds up 2 machine guns and starts shooting the guys.
He stands out of the sunroof.
It's a convertible.
It's a convertible.
And you actually have it backwards. What happens is, so he says, "Take the wheel," because he sees the vehicles are bearing down on them. And, excuse me, John Travolta stands up, and he does the super cool action movie thing, and he holds both Uzis off to the side. And then after about a second of this, the SUVs then pull up next to the guns so they can be shot. So these guys are driving the vehicle, and they're driving. Oh, this is weird. Okay, he's standing up now. Oh, he's got guns in his hand. Okay, let's pull up next to him so he can shoot directly into our windows. So they had a shot on him the whole time. He's a standing target.
Yeah.
They have more than just his head. They could end the movie right now. And they could end this whole thing, but they don't.
And it turns into this ginormous, like, very
This is
expensive
absurdly huge action
gun,
sequence.
like, action, like, car chase, fight, gun explosion
Travolta,
sequence.
I think, murders at least. They say 8.
They say
I think
7 or 8
I think he at
people.
least murders 15. I think that's an
Can you imagine the
underestimate.
collateral that comes out of all these cars crashing into, like, civilians?
There
God.
are
or, like,
there's at least 4 SUVs that he shoots the driver, it flips over, explodes.
So they destroy 2.
yeah.
And then, then he does the cool thing where he, cuts the wheel and the car drifts to a stop, and John Travolta gets out. And we're like, why is he doing this?
And he's like, all
and
right.
he slowly unzips this bag and he assembles
A ginormous machine gun.
a ginormous machine gun. This thing's got like 100 rounds in the chamber, and he will fire 500 rounds out of this clip
Like-
over the next 3 minutes.
For all our Call of Duty listeners here, this is like in the Call of Duty weapons menu, your primary. You're picking your assault rifles, your snipers, your mini machine guns, and then your large machine guns. The ones where that takes like 20 seconds to load in the game, and you have to like smack on like the lid.
And we see that.
Like those machine guns.
We see the suspense start to build as this new wave of SUVs, as wave 2 of the SUVs bears down on them, and we see these close cuts. We have the magazine is being strapped to the underside of the machine gun. We see the cars. Then we're back, and he's slowly sliding the bullets into the chamber, and we cut to the cars again, and they're closer. And then we cut back, and he's cocking the thing. And then we cut back to the cars, and he just unloads on them like Hugh Jackman did at the end of his hacking montage. And he is firing this gun.
He is hip firing it.
And the bullets are going straight through the windshield, and they are just eviscerating these government agents.
There's like so many cars exploding.
And 10-year-old me is sitting there like, this is the coolest fucking thing. I mean, this guy is so badass. He's like slowly loading the machine gun, and now he's like ripping these people to shreds. Nothing is cooler.
I was hooting and hollering in my living room when this happens.
Absolutely.
And it literally is like you described it perfectly, Sam. Where it's like it is like waves because first it's like 2 cars and he takes them out with mini Uzis, and then there's like 5 cars coming at them where he eviscerates them with the machine gun. Then he gets back in the car, drives
And
off,
they drive
and
off.
then there's a third wave of SUVs.
And for some reason, they don't mobilize everyone at the same time.
No.
They tell Strike Team Alpha, which is just 2 SUVs, you go first. All right, Strike Team Bravo, you're going to wait 2 minutes, and then you're going to go. And then Charlie, you're going to wait 2 minutes after that, and then you're going to go.
And the thing that's so crazy about all this is that this scene, when it ends, it just ends. It's never mentioned again that this happened.
We never hear
But,
on the news, CNN, like he talks about. There is no media
like
frenzy about the
7
shoot.
government
out.
SUV, and like imagine the police finding the bodies, and they're like, oh, like Secret Service or
Like,
hitmen,
a
assassin
massive
agents.
firefight breaks out downtown. At least 8 FBI agents are killed. No police are
LAPD
spotted.
does
no
not show up.
No National Guard is sent. Like this should shut down LA.
We don't even find out who these people are.
No,
he drags a guy, or he walks up to the SUV and he sees a guy in a black suit lying on the ground, and we're supposed to just know these are like FBI agents or something sent by the senator. But we don't even think about that until this badass helicopter scene where we're like right behind the rotors of the helicopter as it flies over the mountains in Colorado and lands right next to the fly fishing senator, where we make another masturbation joke about how fly fishing's like masturbation except you never get to finish. And then the senator's like, well, you're not going to kill me, and John Travolta's like, LOL JK, and does it anyway.
and kills him.
And plot twist.
He kills a U.S. senator. Like,
The best part is he delivers this line that's just not badass, and he's like, what does he say? Loyalty doesn't have a shelf life of 4 years or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Senators have a 6-year term.
You know, he says patriotism doesn't have a 4-year shelf
doesn't
life.
have a 4-year shelf life. And then he shoots the senator, and then we never hear about that again.
nope.
And also, we never really learn the true connection between the senator and him. He just seems to be the guy calling the shots.
Isn't it basically like the senator was running that black cell or whatever it was?
I think he wanted part of the money, yeah.
Yeah, that Travolta was like, he wanted the money to attack terrorists
Yeah.
after the attack us. It's a
Well,
retaliation.
okay, so I think that's where the part we're at right now, because after that like massive like car chase, and
But they also
Jackman, by the way, has still not like, oh, I gotta get out of here.
Oh, wait, real quick. The most unbelievable thing about this entire movie is not only that Hugh Jackman doesn't know how to drive stick, which I refuse to believe. I mean, he's
Yeah.
from Australia. There's no way.
Oh, I know, I'll draw
But that
stick
he-
now and then on.
He learns how to drive stick in a Porsche under fire, and no one tells him what to do. I mean, how does he figure that out? And all of a sudden, he within seconds becomes an expert driver. It reminded me, I just watched Eagle Eye the other day with Shia
Yeah.
LaBeouf and Michelle Monaghan, and they're for some reason she's in a Porsche like Cayman, which is the SUV, which for some reason in this movie is a 6-speed. And Shia LaBeouf just keeps yelling at her. I don't know how to say his name. And he's like, clutch, clutch, clutch. And she's like shifting poorly, but it's not clear that she's shifting poorly. And he just must say the word clutch like 12 times in
Yeah.
the 3 minutes of that. And it was virtually the same scene.
Yeah.
There was just no reason for him to have to learn it in the moment
Yeah.
and then become an expert.
He's like,
So-
I know how now.
Uh,
Yeah, Travolta has killed 8 agents downtown, caused massive property damage. They destroy a diner. He kills a senator.
and so
None of this is mentioned.
so Travolta takes Jackman to another place.
He's like, let's go get coffee. Because they go to a coffee shop.
Okay, I don't remember this.
Me
part.
neither.
They go to a coffee shop after all this craziness.
After he cops the senator?
After he cops the senator.
Okay.
And he's like, and he kind of like lays out where he's from. He's like, I worked for this organization where we would.
Oh,
Isn't there like an underground like armory or something where they have like weapons and shit?
Well,
and,
that's
like
a little
computers?
Old church, but that's a little bit later.
That's where he goes after the coffee shop. 'Cause
Okay.
He kind of tells Jackman, he's like, yeah, you know, this organization like after,
J. Edgar Hoover
Yeah.
started
Oh,
like
yeah.
he started this like covert black operation called Black Cell,
And
which
it's like
is
after if a terrorist hit us, we hit them back tenfold
Yeah.
to discourage them from doing it again.
So it turns out that Gabriel is this like super patriotic,
He's a hyper-patriot.
hyper patriot nationalist like agent who is
who doesn't think the government is patriotic enough for the U.S. And
Yeah, they like
he's here to protect our freedom.
And
They
then 2
spin
months
him.
later, after this comes out, 9/11.
Well, it's funny too because he talks about how like nobody's going to terrorize America if we terrorize them first. And I mean that nothing has aged more like milk than that statement considering the last 20 years in the Middle East.
I need to find the quote he gives though, where he's like, it's where he's like, they kill American tourists. We
I found
nuke
it.
their.
Yeah,
you
we nuke a city.
Read this in full.
Hugh Jackman asks him, this line comes a little later, but Hugh Jackman asks him who we are at war with. And Gabriel says, anyone who impinges on America's freedoms, terrorist states, Stanley, someone must bring their war to them. They bomb a church, we bomb 10. They hijack a plane, we take out an airport. They execute American tourists, we tactically nuke an entire city.
Wait a minute. They kill American tourists. We tactically nuke a city?
Well, also like
Our job is to make terrorism so horrific that it becomes unthinkable to attack Americans.
the escalation also makes no sense. So if they bomb a church, we're going to assume
Bomb 10.
There's 100 people in there, right? So they kill 100 Americans in a church. We kill 1,000 of theirs in 10 churches. But then they kill one tourist, and we tactically nuke 200,000 people. Like, wait a second. Where's the math on
and
this?
this Travolta's like, I can get 6 nukes for
And
He
40.
says, I can get a nuke in Minsk for $40 million.
And they'll give me a discount if I buy
I buy
multiple.
12.
If
Yeah.
I buy a dozen.
And this is where like I almost wished the movie took this direction, which is like, because at this point, like Jackman has had
Realism.
so
Realism.
many opportunities to like say, fuck this, you're too fucked up for me, man, and back off. But he keeps on. And I think like if there was a direction in this movie that might have been like somewhat well thought out, which it could have been like that Jackman starts off with the reasons of getting his daughter back, but slowly turns into this similar hyper patriotic like guy like Travolta, but then it turns into a the ends justify the means sort of thing, and it becomes where you're too dangerous to be alive sort of ordeal, so he kills Travolta at the end. Like I was waiting for that moment.
This whole movie is Hugh Jackman being like, I don't know about this.
But that's all it does. It
but
never
then
transitions.
He never stops.
Yeah,
He's always like, he's that friend who's like, this isn't really a good idea, but then goes with you to do whatever dumb shit you're going to do next.
He gets on the bus.
Yeah.
He gets on the bus.
Why does he need to get on the bus, guys?
He's dragged onto the bus.
Is he dragged? Because he gets them this. We're skipping a little ahead here, but like he gets them the money, and then they get them the bus, and he gets on. Like, does Travolta have any reason for Jackman to get on the bus? Because we're forgetting at the end of that
he
sequence.
has to blow up the thing to fake the guy's death.
But does he need Jackman's knowledge of that to fully prove it? Like, it could just be the FBI think he's dead, and that's good enough for him.
I think he needs Jackman to blow up the helicopter.
I think
because he's 10 steps ahead.
that's what I was going to say. This is the first time in the film that Gabriel actually is like 3 steps ahead.
Where
And
he
I think he
plants an
antagonizes
RPG in the bus.
Yeah, and he
knowing-
antagonizes Hugh Jackman, knowing that Hugh Jackman is going to want him dead, especially after the threat on his daughter.
And killing,
And killing Halle Berry. Halle Berry, who's hanged with a piece of braided
Cable.
steel cable.
Yeah.
And then when she's lying on the ground, she has a piece of nylon rope around her neck. Very, very interesting.
Okay, we got to back up before we get to... So Travolta tells Jackman all this about the secret organization.
To the listener at home, if this movie sounds absolutely bug nuts to you, I promise you, it's crazier in person.
And it truly doesn't matter the order of which things happen in this movie.
It really
because
doesn't.
none of it really advances the plot until we're in the bank.
Yeah. So then we're back. This is when like Travolta tells Jackman.
Can I wind back 1 second just to say a fun trivia fact about this movie? When Travolta shoots the senator, he says Thomas Jefferson executed a man for treason in the White House lawn and then shoots him. And that is not a true story, and this movie is responsible for starting that rumor that is now
I didn't know it started it.
This movie is responsible for that rumor starting, apparently.
That's kind of amazing. Yeah, there's been no evidence to substantiate that
No
had
evidence to
ever
substantiate
happened.
that happening. And for some reason, Travolta is the reason for that.
Cool. I
Anyway,
like it.
back to the part of the movie we left off.
So, like, this is when, like, Jackman, like, comes to his senses about Travolta.
Well, first they're in the club or in the coffee shop, and Jackman's like, well, we're going to need to get into the hardline server of a bank that's connected to this fund or whatever.
And he's like, yeah, where's...
Turn around.
Turn around.
And he looks behind him, and the bank's right
And
there.
it's the bank from the beginning of the
World
movie.
Bank with a C, so we know it's French and high class.
World Bank? Oh, bank? Zonder on the bank?
So, and that's when he also sees, like, the underground, like, bunker of the weapons and, like, hacking
He goes
shit.
Then they go back home, and he takes them underground, and we see them loading up all the ordnance that they're going to use for the heist that's going to occur in like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And so then Hugh Jackman, he sees this very, very shoddy power system they have set up in the basement, and he yanks that cable.
He's
from-
Spider-Man 2, yanks the cables.
Yeah.
Yeah, from this what looks like a giant car battery, and it causes them to lose power. But Gabriel, because he's 3 steps ahead, is like, nah,
Let him go.
Let him go.
He'll come back.
He'll be back. Doesn't seem to care about the sparks
Also,
flying.
can we talk about the decor on their bus?
Why is it?
It's entirely-
rhinestoned?
It's entirely like made to look like a computer system, and the sides is like hacking defense. It's like
I didn't even think about that.
They
It just
rig-
looked like a really shitty bus that would be used to like move hippies between like the campsite and wherever
Woodstock.
Yeah, wherever the music festival was happening.
like they make it look like a computer, like a wire system or something. It's very strange.
They took time for
They
that.
took time to decor this bus. But Jackman, who runs to his ex-wife's house to get his daughter and escape. But what does he find there?
2 dead bodies.
Two dead bodies for no reason.
His ex-wife and the poor king of LA, apparently.
All of which are in their underwear.
The
Yes.
poor
So-
king of LA, whose face we don't see.
Never met
He's-
this
his
man.
his head is the back of his head is to the camera, and he's just dead. That's the only introduction we ever get to him. We never talk about him or see him again.
Yep. Poor porn king.
But we do see, as Hugh Jackman explores the house, various lighting setups throughout the living room
Yeah.
and the bedrooms, as if this stuff is just set up. This guy he comes home and they just shoot porn on the couch. That's all he does. And he doesn't have time to take the lights down because there's just so much fucking...
There's a camera still on a tripod.
the camera's still on the tripod. It's unsafe.
And then he finds
what would
finds
have
out.
ruled is if Travolta like found a VHS tape sitting there and he had to put it in and start with a porn movie, and then Gabriel walks in and shoots everyone. He's like, "Hey, buddy, you got to come to this bank if you want." And then we cut from him there. No, he pulls out the FBI agent's like card
Yeah.
to call Don Cheadle, who is still in this movie.
Who has now made an appearance in a minute.
And, like, a hot
Who
set.
doesn't seem aware
Of
of the
anything.
violence that just occurred 16 hours prior in downtown LA.
Yeah.
He pulls up the card, and then it cuts back to the opening of the movie in like
Except now it's at
It's in
400
fast forward.
times speed.
We just
and
see-
we make the loop the loop now a couple times, but super quickly, and then we're back to the ball bearing rolling towards Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman standing up covered in glass and debris from
The explosion.
the most epic
Yeah.
explosion in
In
Hollywood
film
cinematic history.
So that's when I have to flip the page. Jackman just wants his daughter back.
Yes.
And Travolta like gets one of his henchmen to like grab his daughter, and he says, "Okay, but you gotta finish wire all the money to all these accounts, and whatever." So he does it. He wires.
This is where I wrote in my notebook, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
So this explosion goes off, and he's got one of the flimsiest pieces of media technology in his pocket, and
CD-ROM.
he is flown. The explosion contorts his body, and we see Hugh Jackman spiral through the air and land on the ground, and he whips out this CD-ROM, these pieces of media that are so poorly affected the moment they get a scratch on them, and he just throws it in the disk drive of the server, and they're good to go.
Yeah.
No issues with that.
And he has a henchman. Travolta has a henchman standing by to check, because he's always like, "All right, it's done." He's like, "Check." Good.
Yep, that's a computer screen with numbers on it. I think we're good.
It's not like another hacker that he trusts. It's just like some other dumb brain guy.
It's the guy. I think it's the same guy who had opened the nice glass doors for the server. That's his only job is to touch the computer stuff when Hugh Jackman is not touching it.
And so he sends him the wire, and he's like, all right, give him his daughter. And they're on the way out, and he's like, oh, Stanley. And he turns around, and he thinks there's going to be another catch to their deal. And he's like, good job.
Off camera. We don't even see him.
Good job.
And then they take a couple more steps.
And then
we hear this beeping. And we cut back. And the money is disappearing from the accounts.
It's gone.
The daughter escapes. She runs across the street.
But they have Hugh Jackman.
And Hugh Jackman.
So
And-
so the daughter runs out. And Don Cheadle's like, I mean, I was in Hotel Rwanda, like I save people, no big deal. So Don Cheadle's like running as fast as he can. Him and his nameless friend, they're like sprinting out. They're gonna get the daughter, and then for some stupid ass reason, this SWAT guy, like a linebacker, runs through and just scoops the girl up. And it's like, what was even the point? Why did we have 3 elements to this? There only needed to be 2. She could have gotten grabbed by Don Cheadle, would have been great. She could have been grabbed by the SWAT guy, would have been great. Why did both happen? It was just like
More coverage.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, but it's at this point Travolta threatens Jackman again. It's like, you're gonna fix this problem. It's like, well, the money is set to redirect to different banks every 60 seconds. I'll tell you which bank if you let me go. You'll never get your money if you kill me. And it's like, do we have a deal? It's like, let me think about it. No deal.
So he also is like, he's like, it wasn't supposed to happen for 6 hours. Like, that was my bad,
That's
and
like,
then he's like, the money's gonna jump to numbered accounts every 60 seconds.
Yeah.
What bank account isn't numbered?
right.
Like, it sounds cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, it sounds like a fancy Swiss Cayman Islands kind of thing. But it's just like, what does that mean? Every bank account is a number.
Realism.
Realism.
Yeah, and then John Travolta's like, yeah, no deal.
So then he brings Jackman back to the hacking software, and he shows him that he has Halle Berry. He's like, get
Ginger.
Get Ginger.
The hanger with braided steel.
and like here's one thing. It's like I can kind of assume from Travolta's standpoint that there's something of a connection between Ginger and Stanley, but like enough for him to like hack like a computer thing again for him.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he's holding his daughter hostage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which will
but
do it.
they made out.
They made out.
They
He saw
established
her
that
mostly
she's
naked.
a DEA agent.
We established that he's a white hat hacker who only does things for the benefit of the American people. And
Which so does John Travolta.
because
Gabriel's just a patriot too, guys.
because of all this misdirection, bringing it back to Houdini, he believes this isn't misdirection, it's just a blatant lie, but okay. He believes that Ginger is DEA. So he's like, okay, well, I guess I gotta help her. I guess I gotta pay $9.5 billion so the DEA doesn't lose their case, even though they could arrest him right now because we see what he's doing, but that's okay, no big deal.
So they hang her with the steel cable. It's like, oh, how much do you think she has? Maybe like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's
We're
like,
gonna get a nice little callback.
yeah, nice little callback
Yeah.
to the beginning. So he has to like furiously hack again to like get the money all back into their accounts. And he's doing the same like suspenseful countdowns, like 25, 20, 19. And then eventually Jackman gets it. He's like, okay, let her down. And then he shoots her.
He's like, it's okay. She was DEA. Now let's go, boys.
Yeah.
We got the money.
What's so baffling to me is like, so it's supposed to be a callback to that beginning scene where we see, because now it's 1024-bit encryption, which is, exponentially harder than the 128 that he had hacked in 61 seconds at the start of the movie. But like, Hugh Jackman doesn't have to hack anything because he's the one who set up the bank accounts and he knows the bank account numbers. And it really could have just taken him a couple seconds just to put the money back. I mean, he had programmed the transfer to his accounts at the beginning. So, like, there really are no stakes for him just to put the money back. But yet, they drag it out again into this hacking sequence as if Hugh Jackman is starting fresh. As if Stanley Jobson didn't just do this.
Stanley Jobs.
So he shoots Halle Berry, and then they get all the hostages
They put him on a bus. And
The bedazzled bus.
the movie tries the bedazzled bus. The movie tries to like it brings it back to the Dog Day Afternoon thing from the beginning of the movie. And misdirection, and that Travolta has established to like the FBI guys he's
gonna
put
go to the
the
airport.
idea of Dog Day Afternoon in their head, where he's going to go to the airport and get on a plane, and then that's in Dog Day Afternoon how they catch the bad guys and kill John Cazale. But spoiler for Dog Day Afternoon if you haven't seen it in 40 years. But
it was next on my watch list.
Fuck, man.
but he like puts that in their head, and he's like, "We're going to go to the airport, and there better be a plane waiting." And they take this bedazzled bus to the airport. And what happens? They swerve off away from the airport and go on the I-40 in L.A.
All right, so this now brings up what is, I think, the third best sequence in this film.
Yes.
I did not see this coming. I was misdirected.
Yes.
He Harry Houdini the fuck out of 10-year-old Sam.
Because you see the plane at the airport getting ready, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, there's going to be some
And
airport scene. It's going to be a Dog Day Afternoon.
Call Deputy Director Joy or
Yeah.
whatever, who's at the airport waiting,
The lazy FBI director.
who has 2 scenes in this movie.
And then this is a Hollywood trope that I really hate. So we don't even establish this deputy director as being like a guy you don't want to say bad news to because we don't know anything about his character. And the agent, he kind of like saunters up. And, well, this actually happens after. And he's like, oh, well, they broke through the barricades. And he's like, okay, cool. So let's just go there. And he's like, well, we can't go there. And the guy's like, the agent's like, well, why not? And he's like, oh, because it's airborne now. Why couldn't you just fucking say that? Why couldn't you just say, hey, man, we got
This
Bro, we
bus
got
is
bad
in the
news.
air.
The third coolest scene in this movie is happening, and they've picked up the bus with a helicopter. Which, okay, so they're leaving, right? He says, I need the airspace cleared for 5 miles. And they're like, no big deal. Oh, that cargo helicopter? No, that doesn't fall under the same category. Just let it go.
It's very fun. This part of the movie is so funny. like,
It's
this
so
is so-
good.
I don't think we've
It's so-
explicitly told the audience what actually happens. So they
And-
break through
and-
the barrier.
And as I said at the beginning, I kind of like this movie. And this is the
Oh,
part where
yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
And a cargo like helicopter flies over, drops down these cables. They attach it to like 4 corners of the bus, and then it lifts the bus into the air.
But it's so suspenseful.
Yeah.
The helicopter flies over, and we're like, what's that? And then we see the henchmen. They pop their heads out of these hatches, and we're like, oh, shit. And then the cables come down, and they slowly cinch them up, and the cop cars are all, we're seeing them out the windows. The cop cars, the crappy Crown Vics of 2001 at Los Angeles are cruising next to the bus. Which is also interesting because he had said, I don't want any of you guys near me. And the cars are 4 feet from the bus at all
And
times.
Travolta at one point says, you ever seen Sugarland Express?
And the bus just lifts
Takes
into
off.
the air.
The thing I like about this part is that it goes back to the beginning where Travolta's explaining like Hollywood movies and why they're bad and whatnot. And he's pretty much just like establishing this as a Hollywood movie that he's zigging and zagging with. Like he kind of gives the audience and also the police characters in the movie as kind of a stand-in for the audience watching the movie, this idea as to how things are going to go. And then he's actually doing like the misdirect bit, which I think is smart. It's a smart bit in this movie at the end where you establish like you think they're going to go to the airport, you think it's going to be a Dog Day Afternoon ripoff, and then it turns into like Furious 7 where they lift the bus up.
I'm gonna say this is 2001
Yeah.
when like the first Fast and Furious movie came
Yeah.
out, and their ideas at that time was like, we're just gonna make cars go really really fast with nitrous, and
Yep.
then fast forward
Cargo
to fast whatever.
F9 where they take a Pontiac to space.
So like this movie is already 3 movies ahead of them.
Yeah, this is like Fast 5 level.
This is
They
Fast
lift the
5
bus.
level by the time they're making the first Fast and Furious
Yeah.
movie.
And that's what's so good about it is like the misdirections are also stupid,
Yes.
but they're also badass. Like who went to the theaters and was like, wouldn't it be cool if as the bus was
if they use a 30-year-old movie to make us think
Yeah.
that they're gonna
or who was like, wow, it's a heist film, they always got to get away, but who was like, they're going to get away but in the most ridiculous way possible. A helicopter picks the bus up and flies into downtown Los Angeles.
And then like they're not even like well planned at all because they're hardly able to get around the buildings. At one point, they smash through a billboard and 2 of the fucking cables snap.
So it turns out the one thing Gabriel couldn't predict were the wind
speed.
patterns in Los Angeles. And so what the helicopter pilot does in the face of this crosswind is instead of just flying directly down Broadway, instead of flying straight down the street and lifting up high enough that he can go over stuff, he decides he's going to turn towards a building and he's just going to make it over at the last second. And he does, hitting the Pepsi Cola sign, snapping the 2 rear cables on the bus, causing it to now be suspended vertically. And this is when we see
Vinnie Jones.
this is a sub shot of that first explosion shot, equally as badass. The bus is now the safety zone. What does he call it? He calls it like the dog pen or something. And the lady falls out with
Vinnie Jones.
With Vinnie Jones and just detonates next to a skyscraper.
And low key, right before that happened, as I was watching this scene, I thought to myself, how funny would it be if like one by one some hostage fell out and they're like screaming midair and they get out of range and blow the fuck up.
I was saying, oh my god, I was saying the same thing at this point in the movie. This is what I'm like, okay, if these hostages don't start falling out of the back of this bus and exploding right now. I wrote in my notebook, this movie, with exclamation points when it happens.
and that's like the peak of this chase scene.
And it's all done in a super wide where you just see like little people falling down like raindrops, like popping like balloons at a party.
You definitely could not show this right when 9/11 happened.
Oh, absolutely not. And,
oh, man.
you know, it's the computer graphics of 2001. So
Yeah.
the explosion goes off, and it looks like something that I could make in After Effects in 20 minutes. And then we just see this nice, perfect little circle of windows on the building get obliterated by the explosion, and there's no other damage.
Yeah.
And then we're done. We're just
They also
moved on.
swing through a building where a guy's having a pitch meeting.
That's
Yeah.
right. They do swing a bus through a
And
building.
the guy's like, yeah, I think Corporal Sajim's like, oh shit. The bus just swings through.
The insert shot of him dropping his coffee mug and it's smashing on the ground, and then the bus just entering the side of this building. So we're still missing 2 cables, but the bus right now is horizontal because it's
Why?
the wheels are dragging along the inside of the building, and it emerges. And that's when the lady is catapulted from the front of the bus to the rear of the bus, where she smashes through the window.
And blows
Or
up
it's
her
a
and
guy,
Vinnie Jones.
isn't it?
I think it's a
guy in Vinnie Jones. It's the lady who dies in
Yeah.
the beginning. And they fall down and
Yeah.
cause that explosion.
True. This dumbass pilot finally gets the bus to the top of the building.
Yeah, and parks the bus at the top.
Lands the bus.
Almost drops it off of the edge of the building.
where there's another helicopter standing
The
by.
same helicopter that was used to murder the senator only
In that badass shot.
a day before?
So they park the bus. And also, we missed a little bit when they're on the bus driving down I-40. Travolta or Jackman looks back and he sees Vinnie
yes.
Jones with the RPG case.
Yeah.
And he's just like, that's when he says like the thing. It's like
He says it to another guy.
another hostage, right?
and he's like this is another hypersexualization for no reason.
"Why are you looking at me, bro?" It's like what's he say? God damn it!
He says, like, he tells him not to look at him.
It's like, or I'll shove
And then
this.
he
like,
says, or I'll shove this so far up your ass you'll be begging for this bullet.
yeah.
And it's like he delivers it the most badass way you can deliver a line that's written like that. And it just lands totally flat because, like,
Skip Woods, baby.
what is he like? What's even going on here? Why do they have the RPG? Is the other question, which again lends to the idea that Gabriel was 3 steps ahead and the RPG was a plant.
So then,
They get in the helicopter, Gabriel and his guys, and he sends.
and he tells Jackman, he's like, "See ya. Maybe I'll see you later,
Yeah.
Stanley." And then he gets into the helicopter.
Stanley remembers the RPG.
He gets it out.
At the same time, the FBI is on their way to the rooftop.
They're going up to
Don
the
Cheadle's running
The
around.
FBI who reaches the rooftop in record time. I mean, the bus has been landed for
30 seconds.
30 seconds, maybe a minute.
And like, I know they're taking the stairs, right? But I'm just imagining
The freight elevator.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's my point. that elevator ride.
It's a freight elevator. It's not fast. And why does it go to the roof?
And I want a cut scene of that elevator
Of
ride.
just Don Cheadle and all those guys just standing in this elevator.
Standing in this elevator,
as
just
the
like
music
waiting.
plays.
With the elevator music from the Avengers.
Yeah.
They're just waiting. Cut to like the bus like landing on the top of the building, and so they get into the helicopter. Hugh Jackman sees the RPG. He gets it. And it's like this aerial wide shot shows Stanley coming out of the bus while the FBI comes out of the rooftop door, like chasing him behind. It's like, Stanley, don't. He aims the RPG, blows up the fucking helicopter, and then drops the RPG and gets arrested.
Can we talk about how this guy couldn't drive a fucking stick shift car, and yet he knows how to load an RPG
and shoot it?
No safety. He shoots it, and it punches a hole in the side of the helicopter before exploding, and then proceeds to really not do much damage to the helicopter other than to disable it. And then it sort of just explodes as it's going down. And then we see, he gets knocked to the ground, and, they start yelling at him, and they throw cuffs on him or whatever.
And fade to black. And then we're at the autopsy at the morgue, and they see Travolta's burned dead body. I'm going to get to it later.
We have a Kaiser Soze moment.
We have a Kaiser Soze moment when he's like, well, we matched the dental records. Like, it's him.
He's this former agent from the
Mossad.
Yeah, from the Israeli. Or the Israeli government gave us these dental records. So, from what I understand, you don't have someone identify the body if you've already identified the body, which is what they've done at this point with the dental records.
Right.
And
it's not like he's like burnt to a crisp. Like they open the sheet and it's like Two-Face. It's like half his like body is like totally charred.
Yeah.
But then the other half, you can see like the other half of Travolta's face. Yeah. So like, yeah, that's the guy.
And then another FBI
You know how
guy.
they identified Osama bin Laden? Like he was shot straight in the head. Same thing. They just opened the sheets and like, yep, I think that's him. And they yeeted him off into the ocean.
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever.
Jessica Chastain did that.
Yeah. I watched Zero Dark 30.
But
it was Chris Pratt who Pratt, America's sweetheart, who actually killed Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, let's get the facts straight.
I remember 2012 so fondly in that every single movie I would ever see had the Zero Dark 30 trailer before it.
Literally.
But it was the exact same trailer where it started with Chris Pratt and Joel Edgerton talking. And Chris Pratt's like, so you think this is it? Osama bin Laden?
I forgot Joel Edgerton was in that movie.
The two of them are like the SEAL guys at the end. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden. And like that's been in my head for 10 years since. Anyway.
So we identify the body. Now Hugh Jackman and Don Cheadle are buddy-buddy again.
For some reason.
Even though Hugh Jackman, although coerced, has committed massive crimes against the state. He's just walking around, not in handcuffs, with his FBI bro.
Yeah. And then another FBI guy comes in. He's like, we couldn't find any evidence of Ginger Knowles in the DEA.
Yeah, like there's no evidence that she was ever a DEA agent, and we can't find her body.
And then we just start hearing, you ever heard Harry Houdini? We
hear it again, and then we flash back.
And then we do the flashback montage,
It's dead
baby.
ass the Kaiser Soze moment from Usual Suspects. We're just cutting between all these things in the past. We see that body that Travolta found in the basement.
Or Jackman found in the
We see like the RPG being placed there. We just see all these like...
We see one black head of hair go down the stairs.
Yeah.
We see... And after when I rewatched it again, you can see John Travolta. He walks behind the helicopter.
Yeah.
Which I did not notice the first time because I wasn't really thinking about it in that. But knowing the misdirection is coming, when they show that shot of them going to the helicopter, you see John Travolta actually go to the left side of it behind it. And so that's where Hugh Jackman gets the idea that he's going into the helicopter and grabs the RPG.
Which, pause. That still means that somewhere in the plan, Travolta planned on a helicopter pilot dying.
Yes.
Not only that, but for this plot to work, that body that was been frozen in the basement for presumably a few weeks.
Yes.
Had to be brought to the top of this building, loaded in the helicopter. And it was sitting there for like an hour, just this corpse just weakened and burning its way.
Are we going to talk about this body, by the way?
We can, but can we also talk about how Don Cheadle and his army of federal agents secure all of the exits and John Travolta just walks down a set of stairs
He escapes.
and escapes. And I'm assuming at this point he doesn't have the beautiful white hair dye that he's going to have in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But so the dead body that's frozen, is that a twin?
I don't
Clone?
think it's a real body.
But won't they know that in the autopsy?
Well, I don't think that the body that is in the wine cellar is the same body as the one that's in the
Helicopter?
But they don't seem to. I think to avoid that, that's why they do the whole dental records thing, which to me makes it seem like, I mean, if this guy has hired hackers, why couldn't he have hacked into like the Israeli government and replaced the dental records with fake ones that would match the dead body? Like, it seems, I know you have to stretch to do it, to make it happen, but it seems
Stuart
like, you know what I
is in
mean?
such mental pain right now, trying to
But-
put together Gabriel's
Wait
plan.
a second. If it's not a real body,
I think it's the body that was frozen in the basement. I think he's been like
It might be.
storing it
I
there.
don't
but if
know.
it's the body frozen in the basement, where did he find a doppelganger body of him?
Exactly. That's the real
That
fucking
I
question.
couldn't tell you.
Travolta just like had this corpse that he's been working on, like making him look like him.
Misdirection.
He Harry, you ever hear of Harry Houdini?
Like, are we just gonna let this go?
Travolta's just, his whole character's just insane.
It's just like-
he's the boogie. He's like Michael Myers.
Is
He's
it
capable
not
of
like
anything.
a twin? Is it not like a wax
clone?
like a clone? Or we're just gonna.
Well, it can't be a clone because this movie is the pinnacle of Hollywood realism. So, considering the technology of 2001, it had to be
Like a dead twin.
a dead twin.
Or just some guy who like he plastic surgery to look like himself, and then it's presumed that when they burn the body in the explosion, it will look compellingly enough like him.
See, that I can buy.
Yeah.
I can buy that.
That's
but that's not the body we see in the frozen
Yeah.
basement, though.
No, that's very clearly John Travolta.
very clearly John
Yeah.
Travolta's body in the frozen basement. All right, I'm gonna let this go. We can move on. I needed to like
Yeah.
make that a bit.
I can't explain it.
For us to talk
It's a
about.
fair.
Of the many things I can't explain in this
It's a
movie.
very crazy twist.
But we find out that yes, John Travolta is alive.
Well,
Yes.
not yet. We find out Halle Berry is alive when
Right.
she goes to the bank in Monte Carlo, and she
takes the money out.
we
She, like-
know it's her, but the camera refuses to show us her face. So we see like the backside of her again because
She's-
Hollywood
and
can't get
sh-
enough of that.
And she has long,
luscious locks.
yeah, long brown hair.
And she sits down. I want to transfer this money from my employer. And the lady's like, okay. And then she's like, spread it evenly over the accounts because that's what rich people say.
Cut to Halle Berry.
Cut to Halle Berry. We now see her face, and we're like, "Oh, she's
It's Halle
alive."
Berry. She's alive.
Cut to a boat. Really, not that nice of a boat for a guy with $9.5 billion.
it's like
it's a
an
pretty
average boat.
pretty moderate, pretty moderate boat. And then she walks onto the boat. It's done, boss. And then
Turns around. It's John Travolta, but with white frosted hair,
and no goatee
no goatee, and
or soul patch.
I'm correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure he's wearing contacts.
Oh, I did not
I'm
look.
pretty sure
I
he
would
has,
believe it.
Well, let me double check on this because I'm pretty sure like he has blue eyes in the movie normally. Am I going crazy on that one? I just thought like his eyes looked very different. No, I'm okay. So blue eyes. Let me see if I can find the other picture of him. Or maybe Jeff, you can help me out here. Okay, but you saw he had blue eyes in that photo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just gonna look up Swordfish Travolta images. Sorry, audience, bear with me. This is very important.
You guys cut these, right?
No.
No.
Or you just release it as the way
It's
that
as
it is?
recorded.
We just release
Oh
it
my
as
God.
it is. There's a lot of dead air sometimes because we have to find it.
Okay. So
God damn it! Where is it? No, it's just take my word for this, folks. That
I mean, the movie's been so crazy so far that
I
I'm
buy
willing
it. I
to
buy it.
believe that they change his eye color and say that's enough of a disguise.
because audiences love a happy ending.
But then, and then he says audiences love a happy ending, and the camera follows the boat as they leave the harbor, and then the camera moves in front of the boat, and we hear about these crazy and outlandish terrorist attacks that are killing,
Terrorists.
like these terrorist leaders. And then the movie ends
With the yacht
the description of this terrorist, this big head honcho terrorist who gets killed on a boat, and then this mega yacht, this Jeff Bezos mega yacht, just explodes right in front of our eyes, and we cut to black.
And shadowing that, like, Travolta and his team are successful, that they get the money
They're hunting
and
down terrorists.
they're hunting down terrorists
For patriotism.
for patriotism.
We also do get a bit right before this of Hugh Jackman and his daughter. They now like are hermits.
Oh, they're like driving around the country in like a Jeep Grand Cherokee and a Windstream trailer.
Yeah.
And the daughter, who's a fucking genius, is just like, we're going to Holbrook next. I don't even know where that is. And they just leave the diner, the coffee shop where Hugh Jackman loves, and they just take off.
Which, that's pretty wholesome for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the happy ending we wanted.
Yeah.
And then after that is when we see the Monte Carlo reveal where we get Halle Berry and John Travolta still alive.
Terrorist hunting shindig. And that's the movie.
Yeah, it's the movie directed by Dominic, written by Skip Woods, starring John Travolta.
We're definitely at the 2-hour mark on
We
this.
are over the 2-hour mark.
We are?
We are nearly at the 3-hour mark, I think.
No.
We
Okay.
didn't start until...
Yeah, we didn't start until...
We didn't start until about little after 3.
A little after 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
Okay, so we're over 2 hours. But
I do have to pause to talk about a very particular
yeah.
thing. The hair ranking. Cue the music. Welcome to the hair
Some
ranking. The hair in this movie.
yes, we got to talk about it.
We got to talk about it.
This might be our second movie with 2.
It's very clearly inspired by the rush of boy bands from the 90s. I mean, we take Justin Timberlake and we put his hairstyle on top of Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Minus the frosted tips.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I kind of saw the main hairstyle of Travolta as a spin-off of his hair in Pulp Fiction, but a little
see
bit
that.
more kept. Like, this is like, because his hair in Pulp Fiction is like a little bit more greasy, messy long hair, where it just kind of free flowing, can go wherever it wants to go. This long hair Travolta is a little more like, it's very intentional. Like, it's not grease, it's gelled.
Well, he's
Gelled
cold.
long hair.
He's cold and calculated in this film.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he's kind of like
A goof
He's
in
not a
Pulp Fiction.
mindless goof necessarily in Pulp Fiction, but he's as close as you can be to one,
Right.
without being devoid of character.
And I gotta say, like, that it helps the sex appeal a certain bit because it does look a little bit better, and I do like the story element that it has.
Yeah.
With his hair. Now, I will say though,
The soul patch.
the soul patch didn't really bug me too much. May have knocked it down like a 1.5, out of 10. Like, if this was gonna be like an 8.5, probably knocked it down to a 7 for me.
Yeah.
Just because, the soul patch, it wasn't terrible, but it knocks it a little bit. I will say 1.5, maybe just a point. So if it's an 8.5, it's a 7.5. But the disguise Travolta.
Yes.
The ending. The frosted white hair.
Yeah. Not it.
Not it. Wrong. Do not go past go. Do not collect $200. Quote from Hugh Jackman in this movie. But here's my question, Jeff and Sam. You can comment on this too. Are we going to do 2 rankings? Or are
Yeah.
we going to do 1 ranking?
2.
We are going to do 2?
Yeah, we did 2 for Face Off. We'll do 2 for this.
I
Okay.
mean, I was gonna say 1 because his final character isn't so relevant, but I can see why you would use a second score.
We need 2.
Okay. Well, let me rank the first one. The first one goes below the average Travolta look, or not the first one, the second one, the disguise look.
Yeah.
So it's below the average Travolta look. So we're
It's
at,
kind of like cuts off around.
it cuts off around Eyes of an Angel, White Man's Burden.
Yeah.
So
More or less in the boy in the plastic bubble, Vinnie Barbarino hair.
yeah, I don't think it should go below moment by moment, but I don't know if it goes above Boy in the Plastic Bubble, but Boy in the Plastic Bubble and Moment by Moment are like the same hair, you know?
You want to put it in the middle and split the difference?
Well, that's kind of what I want to do right now.
We're doing it.
It's really splitting hairs.
Right, so that's what we're doing.
No pun
Split, did you say
intended.
splitting hairs? Get out of here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna put the disguised Travolta look in Swordfish. So you can put Swordfish look 2 or Swordfish second look, maybe.
I'll type that for now.
Okay. Now the first look, it's gonna go up pretty high.
Ooh, spicy.
I think this is gonna. Oh God, it might be controversial.
This is gonna be very controversial. I thought this was gonna be bottom tier. I'm surprised it's getting so high.
It might get controversial.
What are we about to do?
Put it above Shout, below Get Shorty.
Above Shout, below Get Shorty?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
actually not that controversial.
Okay, yeah, that's not controversial.
That's not that
in the slightest.
controversial. I was almost thinking about putting it above Pulp Fiction.
Whoa.
But the Soul Patch does knock it down a few points for me, so I'm going to put it up there in the top 10, but not
Top
quite
5?
up in the top 5. It's in the top 10, but on the top 5. I think that's a very good way to put it. The disguise look, I'm also pretty happy with where that's going to go as well.
Okay.
So this was a fun hair ranking. Like,
Yes.
to go on a small little tangent, I won't take too much more time, but like finally a movie. I mean, we talked about this in Lucky Numbers. It's just like the it's short hair, so it's a little different, but other than that, not really.
Yeah.
This actually, it's like, so Sam, we talk about this a lot with Travolta's hair and how quintessential it is to his arc as a human being, and that his hair meant something to him, especially in his earlier work, because he went from like Saturday Night Fever Grease with like really combed, like stylized hair, to Moment by Moment where it grew out really long, to Urban Cowboy where he had a beard, to Blowout where it was like stylized to look like, he's like a man and is getting close to his like 30s almost. Like it's all like intentional. But then when we get to the 80s and early to mid 90s, it all turns into like the same John Travolta hair, like as if John Travolta has this personal hairstylist in all of his movie sets that just says, I'm going to do the same thing I always do, and it becomes lazy and it's so horrendous to talk about. But you get those special treats like Pulp Fiction where they do something different and it adds a little bit of flair to it. It's movies like this, like in Swordfish, where they say, okay, what is Gabriel? Who is he as a person? And how can we really squeeze the lemon known as John Travolta to get that character to personify
Squeeze
that?
the lemon.
And when they take chances with the hair like they did here, I gotta tip my hat to it, and I gotta show it some respect, and I gotta respect the craft that went into it and the choice and the commitment, and they really went for it. And I'm really glad they decided to do something for Travolta's character in this. I think it, we're gonna talk about our overall thoughts in the movie, but
Yeah.
they'll kind of bleed into mine. Like, this movie is pretty bad. It's got some hilarious moments that I'll rewatch this. I
Yes.
think I would honestly rewatch
You
this
have to
movie.
rewatch it.
But I think like his hair really does sell the character more for me versus if you had this like the normal John Travolta hair like we get in like movies like Shout or Perfect or General's Daughter or like the 15 movies you can see where he just has regular hair, and that's Gabriel. It's like, it's fucking John Travolta again. But it's not John Travolta again. It's fucking Gabriel. So those are my
ranking.
thoughts on the hair ranking on this movie. So,
All
all
right.
right.
So this movie comes out.
Yeah.
Talking. This movie comes out June 8th of 2001. It lasts for 2 months in theaters. Is taken off on September 12th after the 9/11 attacks due to this movie's focus on terrorism.
Yeah,
It's
and
pulled
people
from
falling
theaters.
out of the air and
Yes.
blowing up buildings.
Yes. Not
Might have something to do
a
with
good
it.
look.
Not a good look.
This movie does not do well, critically or commercially. It has a 25% Rotten Tomatoes average, or its Rotten Tomatoes score 25, average rating 4.3.
It's like a 7 on IMDb.
Yes. So like this is audiences love Swordfish. Critics put out the hit, to quote the Gotti Twitter account from 3 years ago. But The Rotten Tomatoes consensus says Swordfish is big on explosions, but critics dislike how it skims some plot and logic. Also, the sight of someone typing at a computer just isn't that interesting. To which I say bullshit to all those claims. This movie is skimping on plot and logic is why it's good, and the computer stuff is the best part. When it comes to the box office, it makes 147 mil on a budget of 102 mil, which is, like mild. Not really a profit with marketing put on top of that. Probably lost a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Sad.
Very sad.
But yeah, there's a lot of criticism about the over-sexualization in this movie.
I mean, it makes no sense. I mean, hackers are not sexy. There's a reason they're stereotyped in the way that they are.
Yeah.
But before we get into overall thoughts, I do want to talk about one thing. There's an alternate endings of this movie on the DVD, apparently. In which, when Ginger gets the bank at the end, Halle Berry, she's told that there's no money in the account. And then we cut to Hugh Jackman looking at his phone or something. And it shows all of the money funneling from his account into various charities, showing that he had one final worm in there that pulled all the money.
That's a worse ending.
Yeah,
That is a
I like
worse
this ending where they
100%.
pull up the...
I hate that.
I
like this ending more.
I like I love that he says everybody loves a happy ending.
Yeah.
And then we see Hugh Jackman reunited with his daughter. And then we hear in this like super twisted way, all these terrorists are getting blown up.
by John Travolta.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as if, so like everyone gets their happy ending.
Yeah. And in the twisted way, like you said, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are our overall thoughts on this movie? I think we're getting near the wrap up point.
Yeah. I'll start. For me, like, it has every ounce of what audiences would probably call a turn your brain off and don't think about it movie. Like, if you just hear for like the cool explosions. Also, I do think this movie needs a retreatment in visual effects. I think if you like pump up the explosive effects more and like. And I don't think it would be that hard to do either. I think it just, make the explosions like a little bit better and not as like muddy, blurry as they look in this movie. Like, and do a little bit of sound treatment to it and then re-release it today. And you don't change anything plot-wise. Like, you literally just maybe you take a nude scene out here and there, but like
Don't fix what ain't broke.
but you just like you spruce up the visual effects in this movie a little bit. And I think you got a classic on your hands that would just be
An insane movie
that you can just
I love a
get
good insane
blasted drunk watching and have a hell of a time watching
Yes.
it.
I mean, when the bus just like lifts off, like
Oh my god.
So cool.
I can't dislike this movie.
Unprecedented.
It's so crazy. It's just absurd.
Yeah.
Every scene, I'm like, I cannot believe what I'm watching.
The blowjob gun to the head hacking scene is just like, what the fuck?
This is a critic-proof movie in that like I can't criticize it because it's aware of its own absurdity.
When I first watched this movie, I mean, I don't think I would like this movie if on Friday night I decided to watch Swordfish so I could talk about it on this podcast. Like I don't think I would enjoy it because it's not good, but it's clouded by my youth, and it's for me, this film exists in the same way that Independence Day exists. Independence Day is a terrible film that does not hold up, but I watched it when I was 10 and it was so fucking cool then that like I could rewatch that movie and not have really any complaints about it.
Hey, you watch your fucking mouth.
And
Don't disrespect my boy President. What's his last name in that? Oh God.
I have no idea.
Oh,
It's Bill Pullman.
Yeah, Bill Pullman. President Bill Pullman. Don't disrespect him.
And like, I don't know. It was saying right there that he won a Razzie for his performance in this, John Travolta.
He was nominated for a Razzie for this and
he's
Domestic
nominated.
Disturbance.
Which-
he had won the year previous for Battlefield Earth and Lucky Numbers.
It just seems so unfair.
So
because
disrespectful.
If you really pit his villain against Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3, they're the same person.
Yeah.
They're both like these super calm and
They're
collected terrorists.
underwritten characters who actors kind of ascend. Because like
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 3 would be a bad movie.
that's
if
the
Philip
one
Seymour
thing,
Hoffman's
though.
not in it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing though is Gabriel in this movie underwritten? Because I feel like it's overwritten, and that's part of the problem.
He definitely is overwritten, but the way I think like he embodies that like Bond villain archetype where
Yeah.
he doesn't get angry he gets like a little bit louder and he gets a little bit more intense, but he's so like always in control of the situation
Yeah.
that even when he's got like a bunch of SUVs driving at him, he's able to like calmly load
Yeah.
a machine gun and light them up. He's always like so calm in the face of adversity that it makes him like that much more terrifying.
I can't wait till when we talk about the Punisher.
It's gonna be crazy.
Man.
But I mean, I've probably seen this movie once a year. Maybe-
Amazing.
It's like, because it keeps popping up on Netflix, and then I'm like,
Gotta watch Swordfish.
I
again.
need something to like fill an hour and 40 minutes of my life. Why not just rewatch this movie from when I was a kid? And every time I'm like, it makes no fucking sense. Why are they rolling down this hill for so long? And then I just watch it again.
Jeff,
Yeah.
final thoughts?
I basically got everything out. Like, this is just an insane movie, and I love a good insane movie.
I'm still baffled you guys only just watched this
Yeah, I
film.
can't
Yep,
believe I haven't
first
seen this
time.
movie before.
First time I ever
This movie
seen it.
is so specifically made for me. I can't believe I haven't watched it before.
Specifically made for you?
Yes.
All of it?
Yes.
All of it?
Not all of it.
Okay.
Most of it. Yeah.
So
Not
be careful there,
creepo.
Jeff. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's our
Anyone
episode.
have any closing statements to make?
I feel like I got everything out that I needed to.
I am so blessed that I got to talk about this film.
Swordfish.
Because historically, no one has ever wanted to listen to me talk about it.
You know,
Because it's not a great
And-
movie.
and-
And I told everyone, I was like, you got to see this film. It's called Swordfish. I saw it on TBS. I told my dad, you got to watch this movie. Next time it's on, we got to watch this movie. And he was not as entertained,
by Swordfish.
by Swordfish as I was.
Well, consider this the next level in spreading the gospel of Swordfish.
Yeah.
Bringing it to the masses.
Yeah.
And, looking at my clock, you might be in contention for longest episode of the show.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's possible.
I don't think so.
It's possible. We're going to see what happens when you
I can
press that
talk
cut.
about Swordfish for another hour if that's what we need to do.
Oh, man.
Sam, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
to
you so
talk
much
about
for having
Swordfish.
me.
Thank you, Sam. Contributed a lot.
This was a hoot and a half.
This was
was.
wonderful.
Yes. Thank you to the audience for listening to this episode of Swordfish. And tune in next week for our episode on domestic disturbance, everyone's favorite.
Oh, gosh. Is it going to be another white man's burden problem?
No, it's not. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that bad.
Okay.
It's domestic disturbance, everyone's favorite movie.
Yeah, right.
But no, thank you all for listening. Domestic disturbance next week. Getting my thing up. Please make sure to rate, review, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. As a reminder, we are always available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. All of your favorites. Find us at Travolting Pod on Twitter or Instagram for updates and fun stuff. Pop into our Reddit, r/Travolting. I don't know if anyone's posted in there in like 6 months, but it exists. Email any comments or questions to travoltingpodcast@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter at Jeff W. Sweeney.
Find me on Instagram at Stuart Elmore 95.
Sam, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at SKWolcott. That's WOLCOTT.
There we go. And special thanks, as always, to Rebecca Johnson for our graphic design and Michael Van Bodegum Smith for the theme music that is taking you guys out. See you next week. Have a great time.
Bye.
Always get Swordfish.